thought you said Charlie.
Have to have the public hearing anyway?
You should open the public hearing and take any comments, and then you can continue it. That's what I was saying, yeah. You can open it, take the
Yeah, then you don't have to
comment.
renotice it.
Right, and then continue, yeah.
Automatically on all the time.
What you do.
All right, I'm
That's
going to
how-
bring it for mine for the meeting.
Are you? Okay, because this,
No, I don't mean that. I mean the microphone.
oh, yeah,
Oh, right there.
yeah, right. I've got everything muted right now. Oh, it's unmuted, sorry.
Huh?
Sorry. Yeah, if you want to turn it off, that's how you turn it off. Usually I keep everything muted until I did.
Is this how our relationship?
This is not a good start. A restart, is it?
Yeah, but you gotta.
I don't feel.
It is now 5 o'clock, October 17, 2017, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez,
Good evening, buenas tardes.
Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Negrete,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox, Mayor Garcia.
Here. This is the time and place where the general public can address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda per Government Code Section 54954.3. State law prohibits the Council from addressing an issue not previously included on the agenda. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. I don't see anyone in the audience that wants to address the Council. Therefore, can we have declaration of closed session items by city attorney, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Closed session items. A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. It is your practice to read the entirety of this?
No, he just usually reads.
Okay. B is conference with legal counsel pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. Pending litigation, ComAv LLC et al. Versus SCLA and City of Victorville. C is conference with legal counsel pending litigation pursuant to the same section, also ComAv LLC versus SCLAA. D is conference with legal counsel existing litigation pursuant to the same code section. Case name is SEC versus City of Victorville, Southern California Logistics Airport. E, conference with legal counsel pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section, same code section, ComAv LLC versus SCLLA and City of Victorville. F, G, and H are all conference with counsel pending litigation, all SCLLA versus ComAv Technical Services. And I is conference with counsel existing litigation, SEC versus City of Victorville. And there is a successor agency matter, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.8. Property location is APN number 405-07232. City negotiator Sophie Smith, Director of Economic Development, or authorized designee. Negotiating parties Ramesh Shahora. Under negotiation, price and terms of payment.
Thank you. We will not recess to our closed session, and our regular session convenes at 6 p.m.
If we have more money and we can get cheaper labor, we can deploy more forces. That's why they don't want it.
Right?
Yeah, we can expand our, well, we'd have to actually go through a LAFCO process.
No, but see, you had your. Okay.
Okay,
It's 6:05 now,
you didn't lie.
October 17, 2017. And I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting as the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez,
Good evening, buenas tardes a todos.
Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Negrete,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox, Mayor Garcia.
Here. May we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. On all items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and I, or litigation matters, there was discussion but no reportable action on any of those matters. J, which is the real estate negotiations, after discussion, that item was continued for a later date, unspecified for factual location, and there was no other reportable action.
Thank you very much. We will have the invocation delivered by Pastor Dane Davis from First Christian Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our Police Chief, John Schuler. Please stand.
Madam Mayor, in Proverbs chapter 3, we're given some wise counsel. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make us straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. The advice given to individuals is great advice given to any city governing body as well. We are called to be faithful. We are called to love. We are called to honor the Lord in all things, shun evil, and do what is good and right. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the charge you give us to lead well. And we thank you, Lord, that you set such a wonderful standard for us, blazing a trail, showing us how to lead well. May we be faithful as you are faithful. May we be courageous as you are courageous. May we do all that we do in love for you and for the members of our community, O God. And may we do what is good and shun evil. I pray for each of these city council members here tonight, Lord, that you would give them wisdom, that you would give them courage, that you'd give them unity as they make their decisions. And once again, Lord, as we thank you often, we thank you again tonight for the great city of Victorville, California, and the blessing you give us to live and work here. Be with this city. May it prosper and bring a smile to your face in all that we do, and I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
This evening, we do not have any proclamations, so I will ask our city clerk to please present the agenda to council, please.
Yes, Mayor Garcia. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments made during the written communications or public comment sections of the agenda are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the City Council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a City Council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9 and Penal Code Section 403. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council, and there are 2 revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda that are on the dais and have been made available to the public. Both are in relation to item number 1A1. The first one is a letter to the council on behalf of Laborers International Union of North America, Local Union 783. The second item is an applicant request for continuance of this appeal hearing to the December 19th regular City Council meeting. And those are all the revisions I have, Mayor Garcia.
Thank you. We will now have appeal hearings. A1, an appeal hearing to hear arguments for and against the Planning Commission's decision to approve case number PLN 17-00017. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council deny the appeal as the appellant has not provided evidence that the environmental documents are insufficient, thereby affirming the Planning Commission's approval of the project by adopting resolution number 17-059. And this is the item, Mayor Garcia, where there is a request to continue.
Correct. I will still open the public hearing. I believe I do have one card here. Doug Shermack.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and honorable members of the council. I'm here on behalf of Laborers International Union of North America, Local Union 783. We submitted the letter that the clerk just referenced. I just also want to note that the 2 revisions, one of the revisions I picked up outside, and it just included the letter itself, but I've delivered tonight, and we emailed copies of the entire letter, which included an attachment from a consultant and along with a number of other pages. So just to note that it's not just those 12 pages, but the longer piece. So I'm here tonight, as indicated in the letter, to request that the City Council grant the appeal and require that the matter is remanded back to the Planning Commission in order to prepare a full environmental impact report. Because as we've indicated in the letter, that there is substantial evidence of a fair argument that this project is going to result in significant environmental impacts, and they need to be adequately analyzed pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act before moving forward. So I don't know how much time I have. I just wanted to highlight a few points in the letter. I know that there's been a request that this item be continued by the appellant. I imagine you'll hear from them tonight, or
Whatever time you need.
okay, sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. So basically, and I just want to apologize for the late submission of the letter. That was not intentional. We tried to get at least to you yesterday. This is just the way it unfolded with our office and working with our client in order to get comments. But basically, what we've included with the letter here is that the comments from SWAPE, particularly Matthew Hageman, indicate that there is now, as part of the record, substantial evidence that this project is going to result in significant impacts that really need to be analyzed in a full-blown EIR. And I wanted to touch on just 5 or 6 of those. First, that the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, lacks substantial evidence to support conclusions regarding the baseline of hazardous substances at the project site. The site is a former Air Force base. It's a U.S. EPA Superfund site. The report indicates that there's unknown hazards in the soil, but no steps have been taken to identify those hazards. There hasn't been a Phase 2 ESA conducted, so there's no real evidence in the record to conclude that there wouldn't be significant impacts from the soil at the site. The second point is that the mitigation measures proposed to reduce any potential hazardous impacts are also insufficient. Our experts pointed out a couple reasons. One is that because there's no knowledge about the extent and type of hazards that are present in those soils, and there's also no air monitoring in place to detect what hazards might be there. It's really just left to visual observations or if people smell something, but you really need to analyze the air to know what's there. Regarding potentially significant air quality impacts, the mitigated negative deck also fails to analyze those. There's no modeling of what would happen with potential air quality, and so SWAPE has run a couple models to demonstrate, to calculate really what impacts there would be, and found that in looking at the project's construction, the construction-related impacts, the VOC emissions would exceed the threshold set by the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District, 460 pounds per day precisely, compared to a threshold of 137. So that's, I don't know, roughly 2.5 times the threshold. In terms of the operational impacts, they've also calculated that the potential NOx emissions would be greater than that same threshold. And so that's done with some modeling in the report. The last few points, the project will likely have a significant health risk impact that hasn't been adequately analyzed or mitigated. There's a conclusion in the report that there's no nearby sensitive health. Well, there's an acknowledgement that there are some sensitive receptors right nearby. I don't know if any of you have been out to the project site, but you know, it's right next to a school. I was there earlier today. You're standing at the school. There's the site is right there. Yet, notwithstanding that, the mitigated neg deck concludes that there doesn't need to be a health risk impact. And that's not what the Air Quality Management District guidelines require. When there is a sensitive receptor within 1,000 feet, you need to do an HRA. That hasn't been done in order to analyze the impacts. And in addition, the SWAPE consultant conducted a screening level assessment of those potential impacts, looking at children in the age of 5 to 14, found that there was a cancer risk of 34 in 1 million. That's 3 times the threshold of 10 in 1 million set forth by AQMD. So right there is additional substantial evidence of a fair argument that this project's going to have significant impacts, needs to be analyzed in an environmental impact report. And our consultants suggest a number of feasible mitigation members that would apply to both the project's operation and its construction, so those ought to be considered. Final point I'd make is that the mitigated neg deck does not incorporate a consistency analysis with Executive Order B35, which deals with the project's greenhouse gas emissions. It only analyzes the lower threshold set forth from AB 32, but there's a higher threshold. This project's going to be completed before 2030. There needs to be an analysis of those greenhouse gas impacts. So for all of those reasons, that's why I'm here today, to urge you to remand the project back to the Planning Commission to conduct a full environmental impact report, because there is substantial evidence now of significant environmental impacts. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to entertain any questions. I'll be here until you're finished with the agenda item.
Thank you very much. This item will be continued to December 19th, 2017.
The public hearing remains open, and this is to be, the recommendation is continue until what date?
December 19th, 2017.
And would come back for the continuation of the public hearing at that time with staff input. I would make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
So I also have a couple of things that I prepared to ask, and I also emailed the staff these questions. So I'm going to take the time during this hearing to make them known, so if the professional needs to address any of this, he can certainly do so before I give my response. So when the report was sent to the State Clearinghouse on July 27th, I saw that the comments did not only come from the Lahontan Water Quality Control and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, but also the environmental law firm. I don't know how you pronounce your name, but I'm just going to say Drury LLP. The concerns were addressed by both entities, except that the LLP law firm had something different. I was wondering if the city was aware of any further contact that was made with the law firm and the applicant, so that being Sterling Inn at SCLA. I don't know if there was any other contacts besides today what he has brought forth. Also,
Oh, sorry.
I have a lot. What are the comments that the planning commissioners acknowledge? I did read that they acknowledged something, but the focal point for their conclusionary remarks was that they weren't going to take them because they were too vague. So that's what was in the report. So I was concerned about that. And in the letter to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, the city received a letter implying that there were lead agencies that responded late. And I know that the lead agency would be Victorville, but I don't know if I was just reading that off. And I was wondering which lead agencies provided the late comments. Were they LLP, Lahontan, and the CDFW or Wildlife? Who was that?
I'm not sure when you want me to answer and don't want me to answer at this point. What I'd recommend actually is...
Well, no, I'm going to object to you answering because she has 5 minutes. She asks all
I
the
don't have
questions
5
she
minutes
wants.
during the appeals hearing.
You do.
No, I asked
Let's take a 5-minute
Mr.
recess and ask the attorney to clarify this because
Yes,
you're
please.
taking up a lot of time and I don't think you're entitled. If you are, I'm on your side. I don't think you are.
The purpose of no limitation in appeal hearings is so that the parties whose interests are affected have every opportunity to make their case. It does not involve council member rights, which are covered under general procedure. So the 5-minute rule would apply.
It's continued till December, right?
So then council members don't have the continuance of asking questions. There's a 5 limit. Even though I asked Andre, that he did say that there was a time where appeals hearings, you can go ahead and ask those questions. So I'm going to continue till my 5 minutes are up, and all those questions are already part of the record. So anyone who wants to look at my questions, you're more than welcome. You can call me on my 5-minute mark. When will the ground mobilization begin? If it has there been a pre-construction survey for the Kit Fox and the American Badgers? And I also understand that it is up to the project proponent to ensure compliance with laws for the entire project site. But where does the city of Victorville come into the scene to oversee the compliance when responses to the project are only acknowledged and not addressed by the city staff? I see that in Resolution P 17-026, the Planning Commission found that the applicant's proposal to allow for an approximate $500,000 addition to an existing warehouse was approved and is now in recommendation to approve by City Council. However, I can't disregard that the mitigated negative deck on the property site did indeed demonstrate that there would be an impact on, and furthermore that there is more evidence to this with a supporting initial study. Why are the recommendations to continue to ignore it? It doesn't seem feasible to, especially when council members are receiving an appeal from an environmental expert. Are we just ignoring this without any further inquiry? And when was the last time that the Planning Commission or city staff made contact with the law firm? The concerns were addressed by both entities except environmental law firms. In the city became aware of any contact that was made through the applicant, because I have no idea if there was. In the document titled City of Victorville Notice of Availability and Intent to Adopt a Mitigated Negative Deck, there's a clause under project description. Who paid for the grading and for the demolitions of previously existing military buildings? Was it SCLA, or who paid for this? Why would SCLA pay for the costs if these were indeed leased or being purchased? I have been informed that if the lead agency and the expert environmentalist have a process through CEQA, direct communication would or could be transpired. Is there any communication between the lead agency and the LLP firm that I am not aware of or that is shown in this agenda? If you look at the document titled Mitigated Negative Deck Prep June 26, 2017, are all the mitigating measures as of today complied with? If not, which ones and why? Because no signatures are shown in the case number PLN 17-00017. Now looking at that, under the Boroughs of Owl, I can understand how it is up to the project proponent to ensure compliance with the laws, but where does the city come in? It becomes very vague. Attachment C talks about the city's best knowledge, the other public agencies, and whose approval is required and has been passed. Why can an EIR report be done rather than the draft of a mitigated negative deck? And that's it.
Okay, the only question I'll respond to at this point is that actually staff is not recommending approval at this time. Staff is recommending the continuance to December 19. And what I'll do is direct staff to work with the applicant to respond to those questions as well as those raised by the appellant.
Thank you. Just please add that to the record. You have copies of them.
And I'm confused by the email. I haven't received an email. So.
I sent an email out to Keith. I sent one to you. If you haven't received it, I'll forward it to Carol Lee and to the city attorney to make it part of the record and answer my questions.
Okay. When was that sent?
Did you have it?
Okay. Oh, 5:15. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
So.
I haven't looked at my emails since
Thank you.
during closed session. Okay. And did you vote on the motion?
I need a vote from Councilmember Gomez.
And so if you don't mind repeating?
The motion was to continue the hearing to December 19th.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
We move on to item B1, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against the notice of intent to adopt a notice of exemption for the Bear Valley Class 1 bike path. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council adopt and approve the notices of exemption for the Bear Valley Class 1 bike path.
Thank you. At this time, I open the public hearing. I do not have any cards from anyone. I close the public hearing. Oh, there is?
Well, people have their hand up in the back. I can barely see them.
Is there someone that wants to speak? Come on down. I don't have any cards.
Oh, did he?
For B1?
I think it said B1. Supposed to say B1.
Norm, you're on,
Make one for
your
B1.
card's on E1, but you want it on B1?
B1, I'm sorry. I thought I wrote down B.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention, I'm not against the bike lanes that they're talking about here. Is that any better? Basically, when we first came up here, Bear Valley Road west of Highway 66 was a dirt road. And as you can see, it's improved since then. My problem is, with all the improvements west of the freeway, when it gets to Amethyst, it stops. And the road, Bear Valley Road from Amethyst to 395 is a washboard almost. And if you're going to do some improvements, I'd like to see that that could be improved also. Bear Valley Road, there's a lot of people who live west of Amethyst that use that road. You know, there's only two main roads coming into Victorville. That's Palmdale Road, I think, and Bear Valley Road. So I feel Bear Valley should be improved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak on item B1?
I would just like to say, first of all, good evening, Council, Your Honor. Captain Schuler. I wasn't going to speak on that, but you know what? I'm totally here to say I concur on that. 19 years, and I have to drive Bear Valley every day, and that section from, like Mr. Miller said, from Amethyst west to the 395, it's getting deplorable. I mean, honestly, and don't take this the wrong way, but you guys aren't paying for my struts, my front end alignments, my tires, in other words, it takes a toll on our vehicles. And it's pretty rough. It's pretty washboard through that section, and I would just like to concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, on that point, where is that project in our schedule of projects?
That I actually don't know. I'm looking for Mr. Gingler. And as he's coming up to talk about Bear Valley Road west of Amethyst, I know it is on our schedule, but he'll know better where it is. But as he's walking up, just for the public's information, the bike path we're talking about is actually from the Mojave River to Jacaranda in front of the college. It's not on the west side of the city.
5 miles of this area we're talking.
Yeah, but I think
since the
the
questions
point
have come up,
was,
Brian, can you talk about Bear Valley Road west of Amethyst? I know we had a project in that area that did a little bit of cleanup what we could with a little bit of material.
Excuse me. I remember it's on our CIP, our 5-year CIP, but I don't remember the year. I don't have it with me at the moment. As I recall, it was on the end of the 5-year CIP. If we wanted to reprioritize roads, we could. The way we've prioritized the roads is by using a benefit cost formula based on the traffic and the improvement and the cost for the improvement. So it's not an arbitrary rating, but we could always shift priorities if need be.
Brian, I don't know if it was engineering or public works, but I believe somebody was out there doing some work, more of a sort of extended pothole and crack seal in that area. Keith, do you have more details on that piece?
We did have some similar concerns. It feels like it was within the last 6 months. I've asked staff to just revisit that, but I do know, resulting from comments similarly natured about that extension, we did send public works crews out there to go ahead and do as much as we could. I know that they were intended to be short-term Band-Aid fixes until we can get into a much larger project, but we can go back out there as well and see if there's more that can be done until we can get a larger scope project completed.
Just one more comment. We continue to monitor our roads, the pavement condition. We're on a 3-year cycle where we evaluate the condition of the roads.
and we'll revisit that priority list at least once a year.
Yes, during budget time.
Thank you. Anyone else on item B1? I don't see anyone. I close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from council members?
Yes.
Approval of the bike path?
Gomez is attempting to speak.
Have a question?
So what is the total cost for this program? And are monies coming out of the city's general fund and or what other funds? How much are BBC and Edison's contributions to the Bear Valley Class 1 bike path project, if there are any? Whether money or other resources, land exchanges, gifts, etc. As a council member meeting with staff weekly, I would request to be notified of city business no later than 5 days as soon as the city manager or city staff come to knowledge of grants or city business that will make it to the agenda, and not for a month later as this news came about to me. Is the VVC agreement in the agenda, or will it be in the future agenda? Because I want to know of the agreement. I didn't see it in the agenda. I don't know if it's coming to fruition in the future. Also, if the land is for permission, are we, the city of Victorville, leasing the easement for from Edison, or are we purchasing it from them? I would like for staff to be transparent on the agreements on Southern California Edison easements and provide the public insight as to how, who, and when such contractual agreements are executed? And would you please be able to share that? In addition, would you elaborate on the ATP funds and how City Council will appropriate the funds for this project? In your discussion, include why Victor Valley Community College, SCE, ATP funds, and the City of Victorville Council need to be involved in the bike lane project. Also, there are 11 pictures, photographs about 17182 Nevada Avenue in Victorville, the site plan. I'm requesting that the city staff describe what it is that those images address, their purpose, and why they're relevant to the agenda items, and not only assume that everyone will comprehend the drawings.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, the last part of that I'm not sure exactly was related to this particular item, the address at Phantom Drive. That was, I think, probably related to the appeal item, as they were referencing an address out at SCLA. There was a lot of questions there, a lot of which we could respond to more formally in writing once we revisit the verbatim. I think generally speaking, what I can tell you is that, as outlined in the staff report, there's about $1.3 million in grant funds comprising two grants, the TDA and the Article 3. We're currently estimating that the actual cost of this Class 1 bike path is going to be about $800,000, so we don't necessarily expect that we're going to exhaust all of those grant funds. But this item particularly is a notice of intent, so it's a very initial step before we actually move forward in the construction to address the comments of any agreements and the transparency related to those agreements. All those agreements, as we've done with others related to this project throughout the rest of the city, those agreements would come back to this council for approval. Along with the actual award of construction. So this is just a very initial step kicking off this small segment of bike path.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
This is a notice of intent to adopt a notice of exemption. Recommend that it approve. Adopt and approved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm in favor just as long as I get those responses in writing. I have no issue, so yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to item B2, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against consideration of amendments to the Victorville Municipal Code related to activities associated with cannabis. May I have the city clerk read the recommendation, please?
Recommendation is that the City Council open and conduct the public hearing, find the adoption of the ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and waive full reading in it, and introduce ordinance number 2376 for adoption and first reading by title only.
Thank you. I open the public hearing, and I do have several cards. So I will start calling them out. Ben Carey is the first one. Second one will be Frank Kelly.
Good evening, council members. My name is Ben Carey. I represent Tri-City Herbal Care. We are a state-approved not-for-profit company to dispense medical marijuana to qualified medical patients. We've been in operation since 2009. It's come to my attention that at this point, we're well aware that there's at least 20 to 50 different delivery services operating in the high desert. There seems to be no impact from these. We haven't seen or heard about them in the newspaper or heard any reports or anything of any violence. So I'd say at this point, it seems like they're already operating. I'd urge you guys to vote and approve for it. It doesn't seem fair to companies like ours that have taken a back seat while these other companies have gone unregulated and untaxed. So I'd urge you guys to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Kelly, and then after Frank Kelly, Nicolas Perez.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council and DS. My name is Frank Kelly. I am a citizen here in Victorville for the past 16 years, and I'm also a substance abuse prevention professional. And I stood here back on the 4th of October in front of the Planning Commission, and I had some concerns, and I'm really excited about what they've done thus far and the proposals they put forth. But there was a few issues that was concerning to me with this whole marijuana, medical marijuana. And one of those issues was the edibles, because I've seen where now there's going to be probably edibles involved, and a lot of these edibles look like cookies. And these cookies, from when I read some background information from up in Colorado, these cooking was causing a lot of havoc up there with our young kids. And my main focus is, of course, is the children. And for kids to get a hold of this, so how are we going to protect our kids, and what can we do to strengthen this ordinance as far as it concerns the actual use and for edibles that are going to be in these folks' homes. And also, I know that this has not yet been approved for a place to put the money from these cash crops for marijuana. So what happens with the crime as it relates to all this cash laying around from all these people selling the marijuana? Like I said, I'm encouraged about what they've done although so far. But I noticed as a country boy in Mississippi, I remember that we had, when it came to alcohol, we had wet and dry counties. One county could be wet, one county could be dry. When you couldn't buy alcohol in this day, or you couldn't buy alcohol over in this county. So I think that more in common sense, that would make a lot of sense when we look at anything to do with any type of distribution. And to make also education a priority as far as educating parents and kids about the dangers of underage use of marijuana, because even though we got, you're talking about medical marijuana, you're still going to have it in the homes, and there's still, it's just like having a gun in the house. There should be some kind of way that we can protect our kids, even when we bring these substances into the house, and using some common sense and just in doing this whole proposal. Like I say, I'm not against it. I just think that it needs a little bit more teeth, so that we make sure that we're protecting our kids against these dangers, even to the point of, I know I read somewhere about advertising. How is the industry going to advertise? I mean, I know a few years back we took advertising away from the alcohol industry, away from the tobacco industry. Are we going to have automobiles running around with saying delivery for cannabis? So some of those concerns need to be looked at, and if we're going to have folks that's actually growing marijuana in their homes, what happens if those folks actually sell some of that marijuana? What's the penalties going to be for anyone who sells marijuana? So I think we just made, this is a great ordinance, and I just think maybe need a couple more teeth in it to protect our kids, because as I stood before them, and I told them the same thing as I'm telling you guys right now, we need to think about saving our kids from the dangers of drugs. And one of the dangers is, of course, like I said, after looking at Colorado and all of the problems that they're having up there with young people getting a hold of this marijuana, and it's causing a lot from poisoning kids and these cookies and all that stuff. So I think we just need to look at this. I mean, if you're going to pass this, I think this still needs just a couple more teeth to protect our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas Perez, and after Nicholas will be Michael Sorensen.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and esteemed council. Thanks you again for the time that I've been allowed to speak and address all of you here. I want to introduce myself again. I'm the president of the Inland Empire Cannabis Business Association. I did send you all an email earlier this afternoon that would lay out some of the information about some of the folks that are also going to be speaking here. Again, we love the ordinance, and it does need a little more pieces to it to make sure that the city does benefit profitably and does protect the quality of life of your citizens and your constituents here. The concept is we want to help really design the ordinance to be beneficial to both your industry and your citizens. And I have professionals here that are going to be able to assist you with this. These are professionals that are not just folks that are in the industry, but the concept of having a chemist talk about the medical piece. Mayor Pro Tem Cox, I believe you said one of the meetings before that you would have, had you had the opportunity to, restrict the amount of liquor stores that were here. And from the dispensary standpoint, I understand, Mayor, that you had said you didn't want the dispensaries from a retail standpoint because you were fervently against it. Well, let's put something together that absolutely protects the quality of life, can allow, let's say, medical grow. Let's start a pilot program. Let's get some information in your hands from qualified individuals to help write an ordinance that actually does support the industry, your city, and the individuals that live here that are a part of the industry. Some of the folks that I have here, I did send you a short bio on who they are and a CV on what their background is. What we're able to do is provide detailed information. Again, I have a Harvard-educated biochemist that can talk about the benefits of it medically. I have a Army veteran that's here, and he's actually our board director for our government affairs and our veterans affairs. And so he's able to tell you about the many veterans that served just like him that help, or that get help from the medical side, not from the pharmaceutical end. We have someone here that nationally has written ordinance for transportation and distribution that will be here, that is here to help you out should you need him. The idea is that reach out to our association and tell us who you need. We want to be here as a part of creating an ordinance that, again, is going to be beneficial and not overly regulatory, that would hamper both the industry from growing properly under your control, but will also be able to say, hey, we are taking a proactive stance, but a stance that is going to be protective of our community, beneficial to our city and the folks who protect it. Law enforcement absolutely want to make sure that they feel aware and a part of the whole process. And so as you grow this ordinance, as you get more information, we want to be a team player with you, with law enforcement, with the city, and with your constituents and your citizens that are in the industry under the cover of darkness that want to actually be full converts to a legal operation here within the city of Victorville. And our partners and our staff are always at your disposal, again, at no cost. We're not a consulting firm. It's not someone that you're going to have an invoice for. We are here to actually provide professional and real, true, tried and tested information for cities that have done it, for other states that have done it profitably. And again, I did also send a Washington Post article about the actual huge drop in adolescents' use of cannabis. And that's all verifiable. That's a study done by the National Drug Use and Health Agency. And it'll show you that actually that's not the problem. The opioid situation is the problem with the youth. So our organization has a foundation behind it that will help provide funding to educate. Absolutely. The gentleman who just spoke, I completely agree. We need to make sure we educate the full spectrum, not just make it about business, but to make it about quality of life for our kiddos. 100% we believe they need to be educated. And more importantly, we need to have a framework to get them to understand the dangers of what's really hampering our youth and our adolescents is the opioid addiction. We're here at your service. You all have all of my contact information and our partners' information, and they are here as well to speak. And I hope you utilize our services. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I interrupt for just a moment before you call up the next speaker, just so the public and the council is aware? The Planning Commission is continuing to study cannabis and a cannabis ordinance. In fact, they have another workshop scheduled in December. The purpose of the ordinance tonight is because our existing ordinance is not adequate to cover changes in law under Prop 64. So this is being put in place as somewhat of a placeholder while the Planning Commission does additional study work, gains additional input on the potential for additional commercial uses, commercial retail potentially, and things along those lines. So I just want to make sure that the public's aware as they come up to speak that this is not the end of the discussion. This is simply putting something in place that is as similar to the existing ordinance, but allowing for the new laws under Prop 64 while the Planning Commission does the study work that's been directed by the City Council into this deeper and as the state laws become better known. So,
this ordinance is consistent with the state law.
Correct.
Am I right?
Correct, yes. So.
Michael Sorensen, and then after Michael, Maggie Martin.
Michael Sorensen. Can you guys see me? Here with Nicholas Perez with the Empire Cannabis Business Association. One of the main
Sorry,
things.
but I can't hear you. Could you
I
speak up?
apologize. Is this better? Better? All right. I'm here with Nicholas Perez with the Inland Empire Cannabis Business Association. And the main thing that I do for them is I help with the veteran side, trying to develop different programs with with already established veteran organizations that are already out, whether it's inside the cannabis space or outside the cannabis space. Some of the companies that we're working with is National Veteran Foundation, the Veteran Resource Center, which is at most colleges. There's I have a list of numerous organizations that we're working with outside of the cannabis space that are willing to come together to help basically give more jobs or more assistance towards veterans. Inside the cannabis space, what we're seeing a lot, especially what happened inside of Denver, is how would you explain? They wrote a lot of their ordinances based off of giving back to veteran programs and things like that. That we have seen from Colorado. That has been a very, very big impact within the veteran community. We'd like to see that a lot out here. There's a lot of big veteran support out here with the Weed for Warriors, with their project, what they're trying to do with the Santa Cruz Veteran Alliance. There's multiple veteran programs and organizations within the Inland Empire and counties around here that would really, really benefit, as well as you guys being able to write the laws, understanding how it is helping them more, and with the education behind it. Like the gentleman spoke earlier about bringing more education into the spectrum, especially with edibles. One of the biggest things that we noticed with edibles is that at first there was no standardization, so that the edibles, people would take a little piece of it, or they would eat the whole thing, and then they would just go on and have way too much THC inside of their body. So there's been other companies that we've worked with that what they do is they make sugar and they standardize it to where it's literally a spoonful of sugar would be about 5 milligrams. So that's one of the ways that the edible companies are starting to try to standardize their products so that we can get rid of some of these problems that are going on out there with companies that aren't under ordinances or just trying to get in under the flag of everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you. Maggie Martin. And after Maggie, Tim Gregston.
Good evening again. Listen, folks, I've heard some real slick, glossy talk here tonight. Marijuana is a drug. There's no disputing that. Does it have benefits for people for medicinal purpose? Yes, but I'm hearing from some of the people about all the so-called professional people, doctors, scientists, this, that, and the other. You know, the bottom line is this. If it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, it's a duck. And I don't need to be a chicken to know an egg when I see one. My understanding of the state law is, and I could be wrong, my understanding is every city in California has, or I won't say every because I don't know, this city has the right to decide for itself whether or not it wants to allow mobile dispensaries into the city of Victorville. I've already expressed to most of the members on this council today, I've already expressed to them in capital letters, I am adamantly opposed to drug peddling within the city of Victorville. If you approve this, I'm telling you, and if we get a chance to address this again later, as I think was indicated, I'll go into more specific, but I'm telling you, you're opening a Pandora's box, and these people's interest is money. Money for them, money for their business, once again glossed over for how it's going to help everybody. It's business. It's money. That's what it's about. These people in the city of Victorville who want to get marijuana can get it from any street corner down on 7th. They can get it from any shop here in the high desert. Why do we have to create a problem for law enforcement and everybody else to have them running around in their cannabis cannabis vehicles. I think this is a gross mistake in judgment or wisdom for the long-term benefits of the people that live in the city of Victorville. Those are the people I care about, not the people outside the city of Victorville that reside outside. I don't want to see this in the city, and I cannot support a council on this issue who would see it any other ways. It's unwise to the core. Thank you.
Thank you. After Tim will be Diana Emeralda Holt.
Hi, I'm Tim Graston, President of the High Desert Cannabis Association. Thank you for having me tonight. With all due respect, the AUMA passed by 57% in this city, and that the majority of the people have spoken. Right now, I'd like to respectfully ask that you not vote for this ordinance today. You have a few things that need to be tweaked on it, and you need to bring it back and have another look at it. We'll go over it if you like, and show you some of the errors that need to be.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you get closer to the mic?
Sure. Is that better now? Sorry about that.
Better, thank you.
There's a couple of errors in the ordinance, the way it's written right now, and we would respectfully like for you to take it back and just change some of it. For instance, the state law allows for you to be open for 6 till 9. You guys are only open from 6 till 6. That's really not going to help us as a delivery business. We need to be open to at least 9. Most of the people in Adelanto, and especially in Hesperia, are not going to be ready with their licensing on the 1st. And you're requiring that you have licensing from the city and the state on the 1st. And that's not going to be acceptable, because the 1st is when they're handing out the licenses, and they're going to be handing out lots of them. So you need a time frame for everybody to comply. And also, you guys need to write the ordinance so that you can allow at least 10 to 15 more people comply. If you allow it the way it is now, most of the people will not. A lot of good companies will not have a chance to prosper in the city. And we'd like that everybody get a chance on the 1st of the year. So we'd like for you to write the ordinance and not have all this other stuff that's in it. So there is another thing on another point. There's laws being written right now for edibles, for respect for children, no children packaging, no children marking, no gummies, and there's even a label or a logo that's even going to be stamped on the edibles for the for people to recognize that's a medical edible. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Diana Emeralda Holt, and after Diana, Kang Sue.
Hello, my name is Diana. I'm secretary on the board for the High Desert Cannabis Association. So I've read through part of the ordinance, and Tim is right, 6 to 6 p.m. The state allows for us to deliver until 9 p.m. There are some things that need to be addressed before we can even start the ordinances that Victorville is trying to push forward right now. And I agree, we do need a planning commission. We're doing those workshops with the planning commission, so that's been great. They learned a lot last time. One of the things that I would like to say for that is, let's not do anything tonight. Why do you need to push it through tonight? Excuse me, if planning is just going to be doing workshops and doing something else for you to push through. What exactly is the point to reban cannabis again? So it's already out of, the the ordinance that you have right now is already not the way the state wants it, so you might as well just wait a little bit longer, right? And let Planning Commission ask the questions, help with the framework, create the dialogue, do the workshops with the cannabis stakeholders in your city, and then come forward again. It kind of makes more sense that way to me personally. There are several things that haven't been addressed yet by SB 94 that you guys will also have to address, like micro businesses and things like that. And I would also encourage the city of Victorville to understand, the council to understand a little bit more about different businesses that are cannabis. So manufacturing and distribution and even cultivation, they're all areas of the industry that are invisible to the public. So they don't have a public impact. They don't have a smell. There's provisions in SB 94 that say, hey, you have to have proper ventilation. That means that no one can smell that cannabis is growing outside of the building. So there's no sight, okay? The buildings usually have a fence around them. They are buildings that are nondescript, usually industrial-looking buildings, okay? And they don't have public access. So when you go up to a grow, say in Desert Hot Springs or wherever those cities that have cultivations are licensed, you can't just walk up to the building and say, excuse me, may I have some cannabis, please? It doesn't work that way. They have security guards, they have fences, you have to make appointments. It's very well structured and very secure, okay? Children are not going to wander in there and grab cannabis and run out the door. It's not like your local market, okay? So there's no signage that's necessary. Usually the buildings might have there are some like Freedom Flower or Candescent in Desert Hot Springs, which are city licensed facilities. Those facilities, they have their name on the front with the numbers of their address and their street, and that's it. People have the choice. The state has given California residents the choice to use cannabis recreationally and to use cannabis medicinally. I'm not sure how a city can take away an adult's right. So those are my suggestions. Thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate your time as always. And I'm hoping, did everyone get my email today that we sent? You haven't received it? I sent it to you.
I've been here since 3 o'clock. So
I've been here most of the afternoon. I haven't received anything.
Okay. Would you mind taking a moment so that I can read it?
Yes, I would, because you should have submitted this ahead of time.
I did submit it.
No, I will not want to listen to it.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
You don't have a limited amount of time. You can go ahead with whatever you want to read.
Oh,
you're not timed.
Thank you.
Excuse me, she's not the one giving direction here.
So you're going to subvert my freedom of speech here? Okay, let me get my... Thank you for your patience. I appreciate you.
Just a second. Just a second.
Yes, there does seem to be some confusion on this issue. So let me clarify terminology. Council has a variety of hearings that it may have before it. One of those is appeal hearings, such as we had a little bit earlier. In appeal hearings, the applicant and opponents of the appeal have no time limits because that hearing has to be conducted under due process rules, which apply differently than under other matters. A public hearing is not an appeal hearing. A public hearing is one that is noticed for various reasons, either because the council wants to provide special notice or because legally it's required. The council, through the chair, on a public hearing may impose reasonable time limits. That is the rule. It's always been the rule. I don't know why there's any confusion on that part, and I suspect it's because there is confusion with appeal hearings. But there are reasonable limitations can be imposed, and I believe this council imposes a 5-minute limitation, which is several minutes longer than most cities, so I think that it can arguably is reasonable.
We don't have that in the municipal code. What the city council adopted was a council limit for us up here. We haven't changed their limits, their times. That's why they're continuing as fourth.
I agree. It's not in the municipal code, and therefore it's not governed by the municipal code. But this council also approved rules and procedures, which are in effect, except to the extent that the municipal code supersedes them. Now, after the current ordinance is adopted, which I understand you took action on at the last meeting, then the municipal code won't be involved in it anymore. But right now, we're in an interim period where the policies and procedures which the council adopted are in effect, but not with respect to any conflicting provision that exists in the municipal code.
Exactly.
I have been unable to find a provision in the municipal code that addresses the limitations, and therefore I believe that the policies and procedures which allows reasonable limitations on public hearings is presently in effect because of that
Would
adoption.
you be able to read that for them to understand where that's at? Would you pull that out so that we understand where that's at? Because it's not clear to me. Every one of us here was in the same concept, so there's a lot of confusion right now. So if you can pull out that manual and read the section and point it out, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
While he's looking, I'd like to make a comment, if I could. I spent a lot of time reading all the correspondence. I spent a lot of time reading the ordinance. I spent a lot of time asking questions of the attorney and staff. And to send a late text or an email and then come in and expect to discuss it is unrealistic and is offensive to me. You knew this hearing was going to occur. If you had sent it ahead of time, I absolutely would have read it. I would have understood it. But for you to sit there and read it to me now and expect me to understand it when I haven't seen it before, why?
Okay, well,
Time limit, though, do we not?
Oh.
Madam Mayor?
Would you please read it?
As I said, these are from the policies and procedures which were adopted at the October 3/17 meeting, which were immediately, because they weren't ordinances or anything, it was immediately in effect, except to the extent that the old ordinance was still applicable. If you look at Roman numerals 5, which deals with description and explanation of purpose of certain agenda items, subparagraph D of Roman numeral 5 deals with public hearings. By the way, this shows as being on page 10. I know that there may be variations in the page numbers depending on how it was printed out and so on, so but mine is on page 10 of the manual. And with respect to public hearings, and again, right above that, it deals with appeal hearings, which we're not discussing now. Public hearings. It says, in general, a public hearing is an open consideration within a regular meeting of the City Council for which special notice has been given and may be required. During a specified portion of the hearing, any resident or concerned individual is invited to present protests or offer support for the subject under consideration, subject to reasonable time and other limitations.
So we're just going to cut her time and everybody else's time was okay because someone disagreed with her? I think that's not just.
I was just asked to tell you
well,
what
I
the rule
understand
is.
the mayor could have set the time right from the beginning, but not something where she disagrees and say, well, let's pick at you and we don't like what you have to say. I understood that the mayor has the direction of all this, but I don't like to just pinpoint at one person because we disagree. We need to do it to all or to none. That's what I was arguing. But the mayor's in control here, so if she wants to limit her time, she has the control. I don't, like she said.
I have to recommend that that the council follow its own adopted procedures. I don't see any other way for the city attorney to take a position. You've adopted these procedures, you should follow them. If they weren't followed in the past, then that's a lesson learned and should not be repeated. But this is the procedure that was adopted, and I have to urge you to follow it.
Madam Mayor, just speaking generally, typically under a public hearing, the speakers have been limited in the past to 3 minutes, unless they are an applicant in a matter. So, Carly, I see you shaking your head. Am I incorrect about that on public hearings?
I've been advised by the city attorney previously that we cannot time speakers on public hearing items, period. So there needs to be clarification.
Okay.
Well, I don't care about the past. We
Well,
have a policy, we have
that's,
a manual
I'm just,
that
yeah.
says the mayor can
It's different
establish
now.
reasonable
Yes,
period of time.
I
Let's
understand.
just follow our
I was just explaining why I wasn't timing the speakers.
Okay, at
That's-
this time, you already gave your speech. We are not interested in you reading your letter because you already sent an email. We will read it later. So that will conclude your time.
Thank you, and I would also like to take note of the fact that I'm at the podium and I'm speaking as a resident of California and as a representative of patients for medical cannabis for the High Desert Cannabis Association, and I feel like I was attacked by Jim Cox, Mayor Pro Tem, from the dais, and I don't think that it's appropriate for council to be able to do that kind of thing to people who come up here to voice their opinions. It's not appropriate.
Wasn't your opinion you wanted to read to me?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Kang Soo?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, esteemed Planning Commission and City Council. I'm here today to just share with you the perspective of medical cannabis or medicinal cannabis group, what's important to us and how that may relate to your situation. So I'm a dual graduate from Harvard University, Harvard College, graduate degree in molecular cellular biology, undergraduate degree in cellular and developmental biology with a specialization in neuroscience. I took over the laboratory of Eric Kandel over at the Massachusetts Mental Hospital, one of the 6 hospitals affiliated with Harvard Medical School, and he wrote the textbook on university neuroscience. Our team is a 5-man and woman science team out of the National Cancer Institute, led by a man who was the senior primary investigator there, head of T-cell biology. He discovered human T-cell leukemia virus type 1, which established him as the father of human retrovirology. He also discovered HIV, and our collaborator is Luc Montagnier, the 2008 Nobel Prize winner in medicine for the discovery of HIV. We taught him how to culture the virus, and he does deep sequencing for us and continues to be our collaborator. He also went on to discover IL-2, 5, and 15, which are chemicals that the immune system uses to regulate the immune system. And therefore, he's an elder statesman in the scientific community and considered a world-class virologist and immunologist. We also have a Stanford doctor who graduated also from Harvard in chemistry, and he has expertise in natural products medicinal chemistry, which there was the division at the NCI that some of our group came out of, and we have a vice president of clinical laboratory sciences for a contract research organization that does clinical trials. So all that being said, we are, as a group, funded, and we're probably not going to set up operations in California because California as a jurisdiction is not the most ideal in terms of the opportunities presented to us. What we are interested in, because if you poll some of our volunteers and basically the things that we've done, we're currently working with a strain of cannabis that fixes memory loss. And it has done so in 4,000 patients. So this kind of a proposition is not really a business proposition, right? However, it is true that if you're going to be able to deliver a medicine to patients, right now the cheapest way to do this is through the retail cannabis network. Otherwise, you have to go through drug discovery, drug development, you have to be a big pharma. So let's look at that. You know, another desert city, Desert Hot Springs, was able to host Kite Pharmaceuticals, a pharmaceutical company. And I think it was an enormous amount of canopy that they were trying to cultivate under glass. Kite Pharma, probably over 100,000 square feet, just got acquired by Gilead. Gilead is famous for producing the most expensive drug in the world, Harvoni, for hepatitis B. And so if you can afford Harvoni, then great. Maybe you can survive hepatitis B. We are also virologists looking to address serious diseases. And what we have found is we really can't escape cannabis for the most advanced disease. We have patients all around the world. We have a 2 to 3 year waiting list. And they divide into 2 categories: serious disease or advanced disease, and not so serious. And so cannabis does something very unique, which is a lot of times
you have 30 seconds.
You'll see inflammation, and inflammation can go in an uncontrolled manner and cause a lot of sequelae, a lot of problems in the patient population. Because we understand the molecular mechanisms that drive these diseases, it is our conclusion that cannabis is effective in dialing down inflammation.
You have 6 seconds.
In those cases. So I think we have to have a vertical integration.
Time is
I'll
up.
just finish.
Your time is up, sir. I'm sorry.
I thought it was across the board for everybody for this meeting.
Your time is up.
I just have 5 seconds.
Blanca Gomez is an individual.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Blanca Gomez, council member to the City of Victorville, but I am now speaking as a member of the public. Why did we give this to the Planning Commission to get the same ordinance that has already taken place? Mayor Pro Tem Koch mentioned how the City of Palmdale has given more medical monies for medical benefit to its employees, yet we fail to use the same observations to witness how other cities are implementing ordinances for medicinal and recreational cannabis use. We have been discussing this issue for months. Yes, as a city council, city staff, we can't seem to produce anything progressive in the effort. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation which just parrots current ordinance, continuing down the path of kicking the can down the road. I suggest that the council request a feasible plan to implement and find the answers to the appropriation of state tax dollars of cannabis in regards to our municipality and the deadline of the qualifiers of those monies. Adelanto allows storefronts and deliveries. Hesperia allows deliveries but no storefronts. In addition, Victorville would not be able to regulate commerce on the roads, For example, if a delivery service in Hesperia was driving to Apple Valley and needed to pass through Victorville, there would be no way of enforcing the ordinance. We can't stop anyone from using our roads unless Victorville plans to implement some type of checkpoint. Furthermore, the requirements to have businesses outside the city register with Victorville, proving their legitimacy, is a wish at best. Why would a business outside of the city limits comply with an ordinance that is essentially unforeseeable? Page 10 of the attachments, P17-032 of the Planning Commission resolution under Section 3 states the following. Section 13.02.145 of Title 13, Chapter 13.02 of the Victorville Municipal Code, entitled Medical Marijuana Dispensaries, is hereby repealed in its entirety. It's hereby repealed in its entirety. If you would take the moment to interpret that section for me, maybe the city attorney or any qualified staff, when I sit myself back, I hope to get a response. I don't hope to get any response while I'm a member of the public. I would also like to be on the record for Section 5, which lists the prohibited uses in all zoning districts as set forth in Section 16.3.07.025A of Title 16 of the Victorville Municipal Code, which is revised in its entirety, which is A, commercial cannabis activity would be prohibited. Gold exchange businesses, unless it's accessory to the jewelry store, would be prohibited. Hydroponic shops, unless accessory to a home improvement store, would also be prohibited. Internet cafes would be prohibited. Money service businesses, pawn shops, smoking lounges, and other things. Thank you.
Those are all the cards that I have.
I have one more card. It looks like.
Is there another? Was there anyone else that wanted to speak that didn't fill out a card? I don't see anyone. Therefore, I close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments by council members?
I have a short comment.
Go ahead.
There's apparently some errors in the ordinance. I don't know if they exist or it's difficult to follow just because I couldn't find the numbers because they're switching back and forth. But if there's errors, it shouldn't be adopted if there are errors. The individual's testimony was this is in conflict with state law. I don't know if that's true or not. Attorney's prepared to answer that. If there are conflicts with the state law, this shouldn't be adopted. And I'm also would like a legal opinion from the attorney, but not tonight. If we receive information, we should consider all of it. But apparently there's a belief that an individual can hand us a document a few minutes before the meeting and somehow has the right to read it. If they don't, they feel they didn't have the input. We need to find out what consists of the public hearing. I would like to continue this item, this is my opinion, until I can read that document. But I also want to find out if a person wants to delay the best ordinance in the world, all they have to do is come in 5 minutes before the meeting starts, hand us a document this thick, and then chastise it for not reading it and not want us to make a decision. I don't know what the rule is on that. We've never been faced with that before. But it seems to me that if somebody has a document, they want us to read it, it's passed out prior to the hearing, not during the hearing when we have no chance, haven't seen it. It doesn't do any good for somebody to want to read to me during the hearing. That's no way to comprehend it. I may have all kinds of questions of the attorney and staff. My recommendation is that all of this, all the input be taken into consideration, including the allegations and the charges and the request, and that we continue this until the next regular scheduled meeting of the City Council.
What we hear is testimony about the good and the bad of marijuana or cannabis. We all have our stories of bad and good. I've got some of both. That's not what we're here for. What we're here to deal with is a state law that will come into effect on January 1st, and we don't have today the ability to control what happens in the city of Victorville under our existing ordinance. What I believe we need to accomplish, and I believe this ordinance does, unless we find out there are errors in it, but what I believe it does is allows everything that the state law permits come January 1 and prohibits everything else until we have the time and the resources to deal with each one of those issues one by one, deal with them thoroughly, and adopt ordinances that properly handle how we're going to have commercial and medicinal and all the others. But right now, our problem is that if we don't adopt an ordinance that restricts everything but what the state law permits, we got a problem January 1. I don't want to have to be pressured under that kind of situation. So, I'll go along with Mr. Cox if we think if we want to hear more testimony about why marijuana is good or bad, that's just not the point. The law has dealt with that. Our issue is ordinances that control how it's done. So I guess I want to ask, do you think there are errors in this ordinance, or that it's not in accordance with the state law, or are you even prepared to answer that question on the spot right now?
Well, I am.
Okay.
The ordinance, in essence, prohibits all activities with one exception, and that exception is that it allows deliveries, and primarily because there's really no way to enforce non-delivery.
It also permits personal in-home.
And that's because the state law permits that. Permits you to have the 6 plants.
In-home, not outside. But
no, in-home, inside.
That's part of the Medical Marijuana Act. They're allowed to do that. I think it's 6 plants.
6 plants?
Yes. 6 plants, they're allowed to do that. Yes.
No, actually, that's personal recreational.
Personal recreational?
Yeah, Councilmember Kennedy said use in home. I think what you meant was home cultivation. You can have up to 6 plants by state law. What this ordinance does is regulates that to indoors only, because the city is able to have such regulation about where it can and can't be grown. So this does allow for medical deliveries, and beyond that, everything else is banned. And just as a refresher for the council and the public, the current ban that's in effect specifically cites medical marijuana, because when it was put in place, that's all that was legal. So the current ban, because it cites medical marijuana, specifically does not ban recreational cultivation, use, whatever. It's questionable at best as to what might happen January 1st if there's not a new ordinance in place. I don't think anybody could even answer that, other than I suspect there will be activity and I suspect there will be lawsuits. So the staff's recommendation, at least at this point, is to adopt this ordinance because of timing reasons in order to get the second reading and then get the 30 days needed to have it adopted prior to January 1st, and then let the Planning Commission do their work starting in December about what level of commercial activity the city will allow and where that would occur.
And City Attorney concurs with that because it's very important that we have it in place before January 1.
To talk about 2 points that were raised that were actually germane to this ordinance. A lot of the discussion is appropriately brought up through that Planning Commission and public hearing process when the other types of uses, commercial activity is going to be discussed. There was a couple of issues that were raised. One being that you have to have a license in place by January 1st in order to operate. That's not actually what the ordinance says. The ordinance says effectively you can't operate until you have a license. it begins January 1st. If you get your license January 1st, you can begin deliveries within Victorville January 1st. If you get your license January 3rd, 4th, 5th, that's when you can begin deliveries. But if you don't have your license yet, and until you get your license, you can't do deliveries in Victorville under this new ordinance. So the only other issue that I wanted to bring up was one of the speakers brought up that the Planning Commission recommendation through this ordinance was for this to be allowed, the deliveries to be allowed between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. I don't know the reasons behind the Planning Commission picking those numbers. The state does allow it until 9 p.m. That's something, if the council wanted to consider a minor change to the ordinance, I think it would be appropriate to have that discussion. If somebody is, working during the day, it may be difficult for them to receive a delivery, if it's not available after 6 p.m. So that was one of the reasonable things that I heard, at least, that addresses the actual ordinance that's before you tonight, and not, more of the future discussion.
What's our time frame to get it done so that it will be in place by the 1st of January?
Yeah. Do you want me to answer that? Or you want to answer that, Charlie?
I'd have to get out my calendar and count on my fingers.
Essentially, I don't recall the exact date, but this was really our last regular meeting for the first reading and adoption of the ordinance to occur in order to have it effective prior to January 1st, because there's the first reading or the adoption of the ordinance, and then I don't know how many days later, then you have the second reading, which
has to be done at a regular meeting.
So
if you have cancellations in the holiday in December, which is typical, then you run into a problem of not being able to get it in place.
And an ordinance takes effect 30 days after the second reading.
And can changes be made between the first and the second reading?
No. Typographical only.
Then we could tonight make a change to extend that time frame.
Yes.
That hours.
Sorry, personal privilege. Your time is up, so I don't know who's keeping track, but I know I was. Thank you.
To answer the question, you could make a change to the...
I've not been talking for 5 minutes.
Right.
We're exchanging...
7:25 and now it's 7:31. I gave you an extra minute.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yes, you can make a minor modification like that as part of a motion, should you choose to make a motion to adopt the ordinance. And then just generally speaking, again, sorry, I feel I'm very educational tonight, I apologize, that if there are, in fact, simple errors, typo-type errors, not meaningful errors in the ordinance, that is something that can be corrected between now and the second reading, or even after the second reading. If it's a simple error like that, that's something that the law does allow.
Well, then I'm going to make the motion that we adopt the ordinance, or no?
No, introduce the ordinance.
I have to have the city clerk read the title of ordinance.
What?
Read the title of the ordinance. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville amending the Victorville Municipal Code, Chapter 13.150 and Sections 13.02, .145, 16-3.03.010, 16-3.07.025, and 16-7.01.150 for the purposes of limiting cannabis cultivation for adult personal uses to indoor spaces only as permitted by state law, prohibiting all commercial cannabis activities, both medicinal and non-medicinal, in the city except deliveries of medicinal cannabis originating outside the city limits until such time as the results of stakeholders' workshops can be integrated into a viable regulatory plan and codified by a separate ordinance, making related municipal code amendments to harmonize the code with state law, and finding the ordinance exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And there's a motion to introduce.
What kind of motion do we actually need? To adopt this?
No.
No.
Introduction.
Well, there needs to be a finding of that the adoption of the ordinance is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, and then you would waive further reading and introduce the ordinance. That would be the...
That's my motion, but I'd like that change to delivery time to be what, 9 o'clock, we said?
That's what state law would allow.
9 o'clock?
So the motion is first to amend the proposed ordinance by that change, and then to move to introduce and in accordance with what you previously said.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
So current code allows one council member to have the full ordinance read. And right now, the municipal code takes precedence over our current policy that was made. We have a lot of time. So I'm requesting that the full ordinance be read and not waived.
It's waived.
It's not waived.
If I may address that matter, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor. This is the distinction that I was trying to draw when we were discussing this briefly back here. An ordinance is a particular creature of law. It is encumbered by specific rules. What has to happen is that the ordinance has to be introduced for the public to consider, and then at the next regularly scheduled meeting, you may adopt it. What we are doing tonight is introducing the ordinance only. The specific ordinance that you're referring to, and this is why I was trying to make this distinction for you, which is 2.20.280 sub C, says at the time of the adoption of an ordinance, it shall be read in full unless after the reading of the title thereafter further reading is waived, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes on to say that one council member can cause it to be read. But that's only comes into play at the adoption. So it would be the second hearing on this ordinance where it could be read in full, not the first.
I already had this discussion with Andre Dobranowski, and I was clarified where there is a motion being made. They've approved it to adopt this to go through, and this is my time to say, this municipal code says this, and it must be read. This conversation has been had. I don't know if you want to call the attorney, Andre, and verify that, but now I'm getting two different answers to this same thing that I clarified beforehand. So I prepared myself very extensively because I was prepared for a lot of this to happen and stymie whatever I needed to do.
Well, that's why in the limited conversation I was able to have with you back here, I tried to make this point because it was clear to me that you didn't quite understand the difference between the introduction and the adoption. And this ordinance is very specific. It doesn't say the introduction; it says the adoption. Now, if the council elects to have it read anyway, that's one thing. But otherwise, I think this applies. I can't speak to what advice Mr. DeBortnowski previously gave. I wasn't there. I wasn't a party to it. All I can do is read the law of your own code and apply it. You and I are in agreement.
There's no need to waive it. Why are we waiving it?
You and I are in agreement that this governs because it supersedes the
municipal
recent
code
policies.
supersedes the policies,
we
yes.
approve waive further reading?
No, that's not what the municipal code allows. If one council member takes the opportunity, then
It did, didn't it?
it supersedes.
Did it not?
Unanimous vote?
Part of the recommendation.
Yes.
Waive full reading.
The motion's already passed waiving it, so,
Further reading.
yeah, which,
Now, this is why I'm saying that I spoke to the other attorney. I mean, I don't know what conflicts we have here, but every single moment I try to speak, this is the same issue I get. I'm not just speaking on my behalf. I was elected by over 8,000 votes, and I'm here to speak for a group of people, not for myself. So if I'm asking to do this, it's because each council member here has decided to quiet my voice and censure. This is called censure policy. So all I'm doing is asserting what I had a discussion with our attorney. I'm sorry that you're new. I don't want to put you on the spot, but this discussion I've had. I prepared myself
5-minute recess.
many, many times, and this is what always happens. They don't want to hear it. They turn off the microphone, and it becomes very disrespectful.
Starting again. Take your seats. Madam Clerk, did we have a second on this item?
Yes, we had a motion and a second, and I have recorded yes votes of Mr. Negretti, Mr. Kennedy, and Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Are there any opposed?
So I wasn't given the opportunity to give comments, so this is the opportunity before I cast my vote, as usual. So good evening, everyone. I'm council member of the City of Victorville, and now I speak as your city elected official for the City of Victorville. Basically, what I said as a public official, but now on the record as a public official. Why do we give it to the Planning Commission to get the same ordinance that is already in place? Mayor Pro Tem Cox mentions how the City of Palmdale is giving more medical monies for medical benefits to its employees, yet we fail to use the same observations to witness how other cities are implementing ordinances for medicinal and recreational cannabis usage. We have been discussing this issue for months, yet as a city staff and city council, we cannot seem to produce anything progressive in the effort. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation which parrots current ordinance, continue down to the path of kicking the can down the road. I suggest that council members request a feasible plan to implement and find the answers to the appropriations of state tax dollars of cannabis in regards to our municipality and the deadline for the qualifiers of those monies. Adelanto storefronts have deliveries. Hesperia allows deliveries, but no storefronts. In addition, Victorville would not be able to regulate commerce on the roads. For example, if a delivery service in Hesperia was driving in Apple Valley and needed to pass through Victorville, there would be no way to enforce that ordinance. We cannot stop anyone from using our roads unless Victorville plans to implement some type of checkpoint. Furthermore, the requirements to have businesses outside of the city register with Victorville providing their legitimacy is a wish at best. Why would a business outside the city limits comply with an ordinance that is essentially unforeseeable? Page 10 of the attachment of the Planning Commission resolution under Section 3 states the following. I have to find it. So you can time me and call me on it, by the way.
Yes,
Not going to read it because I don't have it in front of me. Please do not interrupt me. We still have municipal code and order, and I still have the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to be on the record that Section 5 lists prohibited uses in all zoning districts as set forth in Section 16.3.07.025, Title 16 of the Municipal Code, which was the commercial cannabis activity, gold exchange unless accessory to a jewelry store, was there hydroponic shops unless accessory to home improvement stores, internet cafes, money service business, pawn shops, smoking lounges, smoke shops. This ordinance speaks to having a moratorium, which is a temporary ban. I don't see how we make any justice to our residents, whether they are users or they are just using these means to feed their families as income because they themselves are drivers and not users of this. May the minutes reflect my vote for the following reason. It's a moratorium that does not do justice to any of our voters who voted overwhelmingly to have some sort of regulations and rules. So for that regard, I'm going to make a substitute motion, and I move to continue the study of cannabis regulations and holdings of stakeholder workshops by both city and planning commissions, and move to reject Resolution P17-032 and Development 17-002.
If there is no second, then the motion dies for lack of a second. On the first motion, I need votes by Mr. Cox and Ms. Gomez.
I voted no for the following reason, which I stated earlier.
Yes.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez voting no. That's on the original motion.
Now we continue on with consent calendar. And consent calendar items C1 through C6 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
The item that I'm going to pull is censorship handbook policy, which is item C4. It's on its second reading, which has been occurring now.
Move approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 4. Would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
So this, for the city attorney, I was reviewing the Victorville City Charter and would like for you to show which line bestows the power to council member to enact a censure. The charter is only 3 pages, by the way.
I doubt that the charter specifically addresses that right and doesn't need to.
It wasn't shown to me, and I'm not aware of that. That's why I took the moment to pull out C4 consent calendar and ask specifically where in the charter, what line bestows the power to council members to ensure this censorship.
I'll repeat, it's not in the charter. It's a matter of general law. It doesn't need to be in the charter. It doesn't even need to be in the municipal code.
We're not a general law city, we're a charter city. But thank you for that response. That's all I was looking for.
Well, Madam, the truth of the matter is that a charter city is not exempt from the general law. They're only immune to it to the extent that the activities covered in the charter are appropriate to be exempted from general law. And all other matters, the general law does apply.
Okay, so where then, since it's not in our charter, and our charter is our constitution, where does it show that they are able to take that power and create censorship?
Okay, I'm going to just say it
Would
one more
you be
time.
able to give me that in the future?
I haven't.
Oh, so there is none. Is that what you're saying?
I haven't read the charter, and I doubt very much that it's in there.
Okay.
But it doesn't need to be in there.
Okay. It doesn't need to be. So then this is the supremacy of the power. That's all I'm asking. It's in the charter, it's in general law. Where is it at that I can find it? Because we've taken authority, I think, beyond. But you said it's not in the charter, and it doesn't have to be in the charter. It's not in the general law, and it doesn't have to be in the general law.
Every city in this state has the right to censure its own members. Every single one.
Would you be able to give me that information so I can read it and have that as a defense? I would like that information.
I just did give you that information, ma'am.
I don't have it. What book? Where can I find it? Do I Google it? What section of where, of what, when? I mean, is there a case, 1976? That's what I'm asking for.
I'm sure if you Google the censorship in the state of California, you'll find the answer very easily.
Okay, so give me that in writing, please. I was requesting something of you, but it seems like you're asking me to Google something, and you work for us as city council.
Well, you just asked me
and
if
you're
you
not
could
able
Google
to
it,
give me
and
that
I
information.
was replying to that.
So can you give me that in an email format, please? Is that possible?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did you approve consent?
So the act of censure, in my interpretation, is unconstitutional. I'm sorry, I have the floor. I know municipal code doesn't allow for interruptions, and we keep doing these. Thank you. The act of censure, in my interpretation, is unconstitutional and should be out of the jurisdiction of this council. Without this power outlined in the charter, it would be my understanding that the council has been acting out of its purview of its delegated authority and its usurping power. This is dangerous territory, and I strongly oppose any actions until this claim has been examined. So that's why I pulled it. I gave my comment, and I'm voting no.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes,
Madam
please.
Mayor, my associate was being more adept at the internet than I am, has already pulled the section. It's Government Code Section 36813.
In an email form, please. You can read it if you like, but I like that as an email form.
Okay, the council may establish rules for the conduct of its proceedings. It may punish a member or other person for disorderly behavior at a meeting.
Thank you.
And then we have to describe what disorderly means and bring it to a court of law because we're not interpreters of that judge. If you just give me that in writing.
No,
I'll
it's not.
proceed
It's
with
not
that.
a legal proceeding.
It's not?
It's totally a proceeding within the council. And I will tell you further that a motion for censure has no legal effect upon the person being censured. They're not deprived of any right. They're not deprived of any ability to act in their elected capacity.
Well, I've been told otherwise by my attorney that I cannot wear a badge. I cannot say outside that I represent the city. So that's really alarming, and I have not been able to get that in writing. So I have to ask this in public session because I feel that there is no way that this is happening. So thank you for your clarification. Like I said, I'm getting different stories from different attorneys.
Well, I don't know what to tell you about that.
Every one of us has a right to speak our mind. You are absolutely the most disruptive person.
We don't need you to add to the conversation.
I have the floor, thank you.
It's point of privilege. You're attacking me.
I have the floor.
It's a point of privilege. Look at the principles that we follow.
The person who's ever been on this council You make it virtually impossible for us to do any business listening to you ramble and rant like a lunatic.
That's your opinion.
You have no message of any substance.
And you do.
You just want to obstruct and block this council from doing worthwhile activity. That's all you're doing.
When have you been the public council member that you should be representing the people?
Let's move on, please.
Okay, we will move on.
Mayor Garcia, the
yes.
council does need to take action on item C4. I need a motion in a second.
Okay.
Move approval of item C4.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I already provided my vote for that.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez opposed.
Move on to written communications. Item D1, transfer of real property from the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council and Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 17-052, authorizing the transfer of certain real property owned by the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, adopt Resolution Number SCLAA 17-003, accepting the transfer of such real property owned by the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, and authorize the Director of Economic Development to execute any related transactional documents.
Any questions, any comments?
Move approval of...
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D2, transfer of real property from the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council and Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 17-053, authorizing the transfer of certain real property owned by the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, adopt a resolution SCLAA 17-004, accepting the transfer of such real property owned by the City of Victorville to the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, and authorize the Director of Economic Development to execute any related transactional documents.
Thank you.
I move the item.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gomez, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D3, approval of general service provider agreements for General Pump Company and Lane for water well maintenance repair. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the Victorville Water District Board of Directors approve general service provider agreements and annual purchase orders for General Pump Company for an amount not to exceed $445,900 and for Lane for an amount not to exceed $445,900 for water well maintenance and repair for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Any questions, any comments?
Yes. For the benefit of the public, would we justify the amounts and why they're cut into two, and how the water department of the City of Victorville is using R cubed and anything with arsenic that is not of levels that are concerning to them?
May I ask you to repeat the latter part of that, but I think...
Yes,
to
this is
speak
a concern.
to-
We're talking about water. Water is a huge issue. I've been to several events, and the water fakes are cubed, and what we're doing is we have our own water system, but we're not using it because of the levels that are implemented. You explain this to me better. So I'm asking you, for the benefit of the public, to let them know what's happening with our water system.
Okay, Madam Mayor and members of the council, this item involves retaining two contract service providers to actually undertake routine maintenance of our wells throughout the city. There's approximately 39 wells that comprise our well field. Speaking to your first question as to how the amounts were arrived at, the amounts were arrived at based upon the use of the number in the budget. We had budgeted in this fiscal year $891,800, and if you'll note, the two amounts, one for each of the recommended contractors, is exactly half of that. And what we're intending to do, similar to previous items dealing with water testing, is that we wanted to have a backup service provider for the various maintenance, including rehab and emergency works to any of our wells throughout the system. Just in perspective, though, notwithstanding the total budget amount of $891,800, just over the last 3 years, the actual costs have averaged in the order of $542,000. So we hope that we don't have to spend all of that amount, but in using trends from last fiscal year, it looks like we haven't. But certainly we want to make sure that we have adequate budget in case there are unforeseen emergency repairs required.
Thank you for that information. No further questions. I move the item for approval.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Gomez, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D4, discussion and possible action regarding city fire services. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
There is no recommendation on this item, Mayor Garcia.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Mayor Pro Tem Cox asked for this item to be on the agenda at our last meeting. Staff didn't do any additional work. We have provided the relevant pages from the Citygate study that was done in the spring to facilitate any council discussion and or direction.
I remember something about getting our own fire district, our own fire. That's all I remember hearing. So I don't know if anyone's going to elaborate or have any discussions, but that was the last thing I heard, that we're going to get our own fire, whatever that means. We don't have money for what we do have for the county, but now we're going to have money, I guess, for our own fire district. So I like some clarification as to what that means and what that looks like for a future of the city of Victorville.
Sure. The study showed that after the one-time conversion costs back to city fire from county fire right now under contract, that there would be a relatively small amount of savings, I believe about $2 million a year, at least beginning in, I'll say, year 2 after the conversion or the transition costs. That's enough to begin to replace some of the equipment that needs to be replaced, but isn't enough to expand the number of firefighters that we currently employ.
So what does that mean to the current county firefighters? Does that mean a lot of them will lose their job? Does that mean that they're in jeopardy? I mean, what does that mean not only to the city of Victorville and us having our own, but what does it mean for them? What are we looking at? I mean, what are the pros? What are the cons? Why is this item here, and why aren't we having full discussion by full council when this is not my item? This is someone else's item. So I want to understand.
I'll try to answer some of those. The item's here because Mayor Pro Tem Cox asked for it to be on the agenda, and it was a concurrence by a majority of the council to do that. That's why it's here. As far as what would happen with county employees, at this point, the contract with the county expires as of June 30th, I believe, of next year. If the council were to give direction to restart our city fire, we would go through an extensive hiring process, starting most obviously with a fire chief first, to help with those transitional items and to do a lot of the legwork for those hirings. Certainly any employees of the county, any member of the public would be invited to apply for whatever number of city fire jobs were available between now and when we would actually restart July 1st.
And is this money coming from the November 2017 election, assuming that we get a tax and we get $8.5 million? Is that where we're getting that money from?
No, this would be based on general fund dollars.
So then why do we need Measure K to even come into play if we already have this in place?
This item, or the restarting of city fire, is not something we have in place. The money that we currently pay through the contract to county fire would simply go to those employee salaries as another department of the city. So Measure K is not part of this discussion.
So are we concerned with CalPERS? Is that why we're moving to our own district?
This item is for the council to discuss. I don't know that there's anything proposed at this point to do one way or the other. As far as I understand it, there's no decision been made by this council as to who will be providing fire services as of July of 2018.
As I understood the staff report, the cost of operating the equivalent fire department would run about $9.5 million. There'd be some startup costs of a little over $1 million, and then there's the equipment. Roughly, we'd be in the 13.5 million where we are now with our county contract.
Year one, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate based on the numbers you talked about. That
What would happen
in subsequent years, that equipment cost would really be more of a one-time. It may make sense, should the council want to go this direction, to spread that out over a couple of years. But ultimately, based on current year costs, which obviously may change between now and then, we would anticipate about a $2 million savings on an annual basis, at least at startup.
Any reason to think we would have fewer firemen?
No, that's based on the same number that we have now. Yeah, that's essentially the same. Because when the comparison was done, it was intended to compare apples to apples, if you will. So the same numbers would be applicable. I don't recall exactly on the management side how the supervision may be slightly different. Obviously, County Fire having more than one agency that they operate for in this area, they can and do share some of those costs. So I just don't recall off the top of my head what the management structure looked like, but effectively the overall operational cost is about a $2 million savings.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
The reason that I asked this to be put on the agenda, we had a presentation of the cost. We have about, and these aren't going to be totally accurate, but a $13.5 million cost for a contract. And during the several discussions that we have had, we've talked about opening a fire station in the southwest portion of the city. A lot of people out there want that fire station open. That fire station was built with development fees, for those who didn't know that, not city tax money. And we have had different people who lived, we've had people in that area at different times press the council for getting that open. And we also talked about during these various hearings of needing equipment and the increased cost. We talked about a potential of contracting with an independent fire agency or Apple Valley or CalPERS. The end result of that was that we ended up with the inability of contracting with an independent fire department. We talked about that. Apple Valley, no. Cal Fire submitted a nice letter indicating they weren't going to submit. And this council, through the various public hearings and discussions, did not take any position that was opposite or different than what County Fire had presented. And what they had presented was outlined. The City Council agreed, and the City Council opted then to put an item on the November ballot to raise the money to buy all those items, capital and manpower, that County Fire said we needed. One of the things that we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't get involved in the pros and cons of that at this time, but we have to be prepared to provide the best possible fire services for our citizens, and any alternative that is available we need to look at, and we really didn't look at the alternative of starting our own fire department, even though it's indicated about a $2 million a year savings. I think that's an error. I don't think it's going to involve a lot of staff time because they have the dollar figures. I think that this council needs to know if that's reality or not. I think we need to know the time period that it would take and the effect that it would have in regard to purchase of equipment and opening the fire station. Clearly, at the present time, city managers, excuse me, has indicated that we don't have the money to open the fire station. Council and all the people involved want it open. And so we can't make a determination, unless we have the monies or another alternative. It seems we have a choice. And at this point in time, it would, from my point of view, need more information from staff in regard to that alternative that we really haven't looked at. It's been pointed out, it's been teased, it's shown the savings, but it really has no in-depth study from staff nor report to the council. And I think that's really needed, and so the council can make an informed decision.
Didn't we have a workshop not too long ago where you presented all the multiple things and we kind of decided what it would be, and then it went to the people? Now we're going to have a tax increase. I'm not understanding if we're moving forward or we're moving back or what's happening. I mean, are we going to have a motion to have everyone sitting down at the table, fire union, to see what it is that they say, not just council, because we're representing not only the constituents that are being harmed by fire, lack thereof, but we're also representing those people that live, work, and play. And I find it very unfair to just bring it out there and say council, because you know you have a huge influence over all these people here except me. You do. So if you call it and say city, they will vote with you. And I find it very disconcerting when we don't have it where everybody sits down on one ground and they get to say what's their feeling, and if they get to have their vote influence over their, not yours, then that would be more applicable. I'm just very frustrated right now.
I can understand your frustration.
To answer, I think, some of the question at least, this was studied in depth by the consultant. When it was presented to the council in, I want to say, February or March, there was more of an interest at that point in obtaining a more formal bid than we were able to get from CAL FIRE. It was just an estimate. So rather than getting into the details of the study at that time, we were directed in June, I believe it was, to go out and obtain a bid, which ultimately CAL FIRE opted not to provide. So as far as the information, we can put together a presentation with the information that's already been gathered. I think it is detailed enough to have that conversation, if that's the conversation the council wishes to have.
What kind of problem do you think we would have attracting 58 applicants to our fire department if we decided to?
When County Fire did a recruitment, I don't think it's their latest one. In fact, I know it's not their latest one. But I am aware a few years ago of a recruitment that they did, that they opened to the public online. And I don't know the number of applicants that they allowed, but they took up to, I want to say it was either 1,000 or 1,500 applications. It was a large number, I know that much. I think the first time it was open to the public, it shut down after, I think, 15 minutes because they had reached that maximum. And then 2 weeks later, it was a very similar time. I don't know if it's shorter or longer, but I know one of the applicants, and you literally had to be waiting for it to open if you had any hope.
Were they qualified, or were they going to have to go to the academy?
So
they already qualified.
That I can't say. I wasn't a part of that. The firm that did the study is familiar with those recruiting practices. It would be difficult, I will say, to hire enough employees between now and July 1st. It would be difficult, but not impossible. I believe that we could bring on, as part of those transitional costs, we could bring on a hiring agency to assist us with that and make sure that we get good, qualified individuals. In discussions with our consultant on this in the spring, we identified personnel strategies to attract entry-level firefighters that we don't believe is going to be a problem, because we would be competing, if you will, for entry-level firefighters that would be of a similar benefit category in all agencies because of PEPRA. We also identified strategies for bringing in I'll say the leadership, if you will, the chief, assistant chief, deputy chief, whatever we bring in. There's ways to attract people at that point in their career, maybe later in their career. What the consultant did identify as part of that process is that so I'll just say middle management of fire, mid-career professionals, say your captain see someone in that range of their career, it may be more difficult for us to attract those positions just because of changes in retirement systems.
What about the fire personnel who are now with the county, working up here, want to live up here, don't want to go somewhere else and be reassigned by the county? Was there any reason they wouldn't be able to apply for these positions, and would they get any kind of preferential treatment?
They would not get preferential treatment as part of the review process, but clearly if they're a firefighter working in Victorville now, they know our stations, they know our equipment, they know our city. If I'm on a hiring panel, which I would not be, but if I were on a hiring panel, that's very attractive. That would make sense that that's somebody you would want to hire.
But this sounds very absurd. How many of us who have a job want to reapply for our same job because the company decided to move out? I think what is only fair, why don't we also bring the police union? They're also a union, and let's get our own contract with police, and we can have them as well. And if we're going to have fire, so now we have police and fire. I mean, if we're talking about monies, raising taxes, we're going to hire 15 of this, 10 of that. I think it's only plausible to include also police. They take a lot of our income for taxpayers because there's a lot of crime out there. So why not have our own police force as well? What does that sound like? Workshops on that too.
So we actually studied that a few years ago. It was part of a regional JPA that was discussed. And ultimately, the costs of the police force, if you will, were roughly the same as what the county is charging. That was the same consulting firm that looked at that. Obviously, it would be slightly different if we were a single city rather than a conglomeration of all the cities up here. But there was the tiniest bit of savings that wouldn't actually be realized for, I want to say, 12 or 15 years. So it was effectively the same cost. On the fire side, there was some savings identified as a regional JPA. Apple Valley did not participate in that, but there was some savings identified. It was just a question of, how much the transition cost would be as to when you would sort of cross over and actually be cheaper than the current contract. So, but if the council is interested, certainly we could study police services for just the city of Victorville.
So are we ignoring the fact that for 10 years we weren't able to supply a lot of the trucks, and they've been working on trucks that borrowed from SCLA for a couple of minutes here, a couple of minutes there? I mean, is all that like in the trash? We're ignoring all that? I mean, we had an extensive research on what was happening, and we could not were able to afford, and now we're going to have a $2 million savings going back. I think the city keeps going forward and backward and forward and backward, and we don't make a decision that really helps everyone. We had our own fire station, I guess, or fire district union at one point. Now this council is deciding to change it. Okay, then what if we have a new makeup and we have 3 votes? Are we going to go back and go to county? So what is it that we're really doing?
I could answer that. There's been no decision to have a city fire department. There's been no motion. There's been no vote. But there has been a request that we compare all avenues. That's all.
We have 3 firemen here. Could anybody want to add something to this discussion? Like to hear from you. I would.
Sorry, I'm battling a cold. Dan Mejia. I'm the assistant chief here in Victorville. Just like to talk on a couple of the items. One of them is that when we talk about starting up our own fire, we realized that when county took over or came in and took on the contract, we brought over the 60 people and provided them jobs. There's no guarantee on our half that we could absorb 60 positions. So there's a lapse in time that comes about with recruitment and us identifying how many positions we have available. That's one aspect. Another one is I want to talk about the cost savings with county fire. We've been here 9 years, and you've basically seen about a 6% increase in costs. And we've seen a double in responses. So we've done our due diligence, I believe, in trying to maintain your costs, providing you a level of service that I think reflects county fire's image. And so those are some of the things that we've done through regionalization. And we're looking for opportunities through partnerships up here to contain our costs. We don't just provide service here in Victorville. We also have Hesperia in Adelanto. And through our partnerships, we're able to contain our costs and maintain a level of service that reflects a good service throughout the whole high desert. One of the issues we have when you have a city of Victorville and you're only looking inside your borders and the service that you could provide, we try to convince everybody it's the level of service all of us collectively can provide the citizens up here in the high desert. An example is when Adelanto had their cost cuts, they had to go down to one station. And it was through the partnerships of Victorville and Hesperia that they were able to maintain a level of service. They since have doubled their personnel, and they see a lot less in mutual aid from you. But now they're able to start providing that back. Hesperia also, in some of the areas, is able to provide that back without just looking within the borders of Victorville. We're able to look at a regionalization option and start looking at some cost shares. An example is 315s. We talked about opening that station. One of the options we have, if we can get into partnerships with Adelanto and Victorville through annexation or long-term contracts, is doing some cost sharing in there. Adelanto doesn't have to open a whole new station at the cost of $2.2 million, and Victorville doesn't have to open up a station at the cost of $2.2 million. You could share those costs and only have a cost of 1.1, and you can see the benefit to your city. You can use it in equipment costs, you could use it in station repairs. It's just not about replacing your equipment. Your stations also need to be upgraded. As you're adding manpower, one of the issues we're having is we're running 3 pieces of apparatus out of Station 311. It's really not set up and designed to handle that many people. We haven't updated our bathroom systems over there. Our bedroom systems are minimal at best, but we're making it work. And part of the responsibilities, I think, is us identifying those.
The time is up.
Oh, no, keep going.
Oh, keep going?
Yeah. Can we,
okay.
please?
We're hearing something that's coming from someone that really knows what he's talking about.
So when we look at this, it's just not about replacing your apparatus. It's maintaining your stations, looking at regionalization, looking at options for this whole high desert. And yes, you are a major part of that puzzle. And that's why when we're talking about this, it's an important part. It's just not about us delivering a contract in Victorville. It's about the whole high desert and forest. I live up here in the high desert. I've been up here for 30 years. And I'm at the end of my career, but one of the things I'd like to see is a good model. An ability, as we see down, and we're starting to see down in the valley we call, and how we can share in some of those resources. We could cut down on response times. We're saving money by being able to cohabitate stations. You see that partnership right now with Hesperia and the county at Station 305, at 395, and the 15. So those are some of the things that when you get yourself into just running your own city fire, you lose that ability. Here we're just saying is take a look and consider the options that county fire has. And like I said, one of the things that I think we're proudest of is only a 6% increase in your costs over 9 years. And I think we've looked for opportunities. We talked about how we got you a fire engine. It was our personnel that went out and put out the grant and got that fire engine and understands the importance of new equipment here. We took 319's fire engine. We got the city council to approve a $20,000 increase to go out and paint it and to get it equipped and to make it a frontline piece of equipment for you. We continue to try to be good partners. We continue to try to find ways to cut costs for you. And we're also concerned about our employees. And we're concerned about where they're going to hold jobs. And these aren't just people that come from other places. They're people that live up here in the high desert. The reason why they work up here is because they live up here. And that's our position.
I have one question.
Yes,
if I may.
go ahead.
On everything you said, is there any reason that can't be accomplished with a contract?
Well, one of the difficulties with the contract is it doesn't give us any ability to long-term plan. So presently our contracts are, the last contract we were with you was a 10-year contract. After first year, you had a 1-year opt-out. Even if we got into another long-term contract, we'd have to look at least a 5-year plan, because it would take us that long to start building in an apparatus replacement program, start to fix the stations that we would need to do. We couldn't do it overnight, and it would have to be over a long term. So that's what we're looking for, is if we got into another long-term contract, we'd need at least 5 years so we could do that kind of planning. And annexation, and we've had those discussions, builds in another element.
Builds in another what?
It builds in the other portion of it, gives us the ability to take over and manage your fire services and be able to look at the new systems that are out there that help us decide where fire stations need to be. Presently, we're in talks with Adelanto to get into annexation. We're presently in annexation with Hesperia. So all we're looking for is a way to say, what's the best delivery model for us? How do we build a 5, 10-year, 15, 20-year plan?
Yeah, I appreciate your answer. But the answer is, not anything that you said couldn't be handled by a contract. Going into the county district, this council lose all jurisdiction forever. It's all done. Everything. And no matter what you say, county is in total control and don't have to do anything, doesn't have to open the station, can build all the stations from now on outside the city. A contract can give local control where people can come to this council, we're elected in the city. If that is not a good model, then what are we doing with roads and water and sewer and anything else? Let the county run it all? From what I'm hearing, you give good service, but they do not want us to give up local control.
And we respect that. And one of the things that we understand is that we are responsive to the councils, the community. We are a big fire department, but we want to make sure we're giving, we're understanding the local control and the local community. I do sit in these meetings. I do answer to Mr. Robertson. I do answer to the constituents here. We are very responsive to you and your input. We are not in the business of building fire departments that don't meet the local needs. Everywhere we've gone, in all the cities that we're providing service in, that is our number one concern.
I don't have a question for you, but I do have a comment in regards to local control. I think council does have full control, and I'm going to say that because I tested the waters when I said, let's implement community service and have police officers go out once a month and tell the community that they are there for them. It only lasted one time. It went out. Why? Because there was not a consensus of the general population here, my 4 colleagues. So had all of us been on board, we could have said, you know what, the contract for police will now on. Every month, we'll have 1 police officer rotating in different small businesses to help sustain the business and help the community come closer and show them that they are there for us, because we foot the bill. Ultimately, we foot your bill. So people can come to us and complain, and we can pull your ears, so to speak, or go visit you and say, hey, what's happening here? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. When is the last time that any council member here, after the election, went to go visit the stations that we are supposed to be servicing? I don't know, but I know that we have to go out there and see what it is that you guys are doing. This is my personal thing when it comes to what is local control. When someone comes and complains about anyone, guess what? I'm at the dais saying, hello, people, what happened? Let's get a voice out there. And I will always do that. So when it comes to local control, we do have that. So that's my perception.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We have local control with the contract. This council has local control with its own fire department. If you annex into the county special district, we have no control. You know it. I know it. LAFCO will tell you that. Check with anybody you want to. If this council goes into the county special district, we have no say-so on fire about anything, and you know it. So please don't say something different.
I would say this. I would say that that's true. But with that comes the liability portion. We're assuming the liability of future pension obligations. We're assuming the future equipment needs that you'd have. We're assuming all those other things that presently you're faced with. But what we also do is by us taking on those responsibilities, we're still responsive to our local communities. It's still about providing service to those communities that we serve. It's not about building this big machine. It's not about that. It's about How do we plan out 5, 10, 15 years down the road if we don't know if we're going to actually be in those communities? That's what annexation provides us. It's not about delivering. We're no different than the sheriff. We're still attending your meetings. We're still responsive to your needs. We're still doing the same level of service that we have. And the other thing, I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but one of the other things I think that's important for me to bring up is the things that we bring with us. County Fire has built this, that we understand the need for regionalization. And we do it with our equipment replacement, but we also do it by, when we go out to buy equipment, we're buying equipment 5, 6, 7, 8 at a time, so we're getting cost savings there. We also have mechanics that provide nothing but fire service repairs. We also have a service center that does nothing but supply those things that gets us cost savings. So there's cost savings all down the line that we've been able to develop over the 15, 20 years that we've been a county fire. We've been there that long. It's taken us that long to get to county fire. But those are the things that we bring with it. When you talk about starting your own, then you're out there negotiating your own fire trucks. You're out there negotiating your own costs for BAs, your own costs for turnout gears, all the other things. And I would hope that in the 9 years that we provided service to the city of Victorville, that we've never given you any reason to believe you don't have local control, that you can't come to us and we're not responsive to your needs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have Travis Aguirre.
Good evening, Council and esteemed Mayor. How you doing? My name is Travis Aguirre. I am the 3rd VP for Local 935. I represent the Victorville Division as well as Adelanto and areas of Hellendale. I want to specifically speak on the comment that was made about personnel and the possibility of applications that may be received. Recently, the city of Montclair flew for positions of firefighter, and they received 0 applicants. Also, you had the city of Loma Linda go ahead and fly also. They had 100 applicants come in, and they were having a hard time even getting 60 to go through. We personally actually just flew for the position of firefighter and received about 247 applicants. And at this time, we're trying to put together 50 people just to go through our tower. So, you know, when we talk about times when we had 1,500 plus applicants come through, it's a different time, honestly. There's a lot of bigger departments that pay a lot more, LA City, LA County, Anaheim, OCFA, and those are really appealing to a lot of the firefighters that are looking for jobs. We also discussed the potential for Victorville current employees that the county is providing, that they might want to also come work for the city of Victorville. Speaking as from my personal experience, I was actually a city of Victorville firefighter. And I was able to witness firsthand, actually, the problems and the downfall of being a small city department. I was able to witness some of the situations and the problems that we faced. You know, we had Joanne Allman, we had Rudy Calvary-Ellis, Terry Caldwell, you know, a lot of the council that was prior to you all. And they did face tough choices, you know, just as you are now. But personally, you know, and I can't say that I speak for everybody, but I would say that I can pretty much guarantee none of the previous employees or the employees that are currently serving would want to come back. We are experiencing a increased benefit of retirement, also along with other benefits that the county does provide, and it's become our home. And you know, our previous home decided to contract away from us, you know, and our new home is pleasant. You know, we do enjoy working here. We do have pride in the county, and not just the county, but in the city. You know, I've lived up here for my entire life, 35 years. You know, I do have a vested interest in the city of Victorville. You know, I want to see us prosper. I want us to see us come to an agreement to where we can all, thrive and have it be mutually beneficial to everyone. So that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? One?
Yeah, I still support you, and I will continuously. I don't know my colleagues, but you had my support from day one, and you still have it. So if you have anything in me, is a vote for you, not for something to come forth that I've seen so far. I have the same treatment that you felt. I'm feeling it too. So we're like this. I understand how you're feeling, because I get it all the time up here.
My request is that the city council consider scrutinize this more closely in regard to providing levels to the city that we can afford, that is expected by the citizenry, and we haven't actually really looked that closely to establish the fire department. And really disappointed to hear that one person speaks for all 64 firefighters, and none of them want to come up here if we form their own fire department, but hey, whatever. But I'd like that the manager look into this very closely. It may be not the way to go. As Ms. Gomez has already made up her mind to annex to county fire, I've made up my mind never to annex to county fire, and so we have at least 2 council members who are on opposite sides of the spectrum here, but because of cost and local control. On a city fire department, it may not be possible. We don't know that. Manager can refine those, give them back to the city council. We can discuss that, and we will be in a position to negotiate long-term contract, start our own fire department, or at least have an informed discussion, which I hope will occur about November 8th. But second to my motion to request that the staff look into this, and at least 3 members of the council. If not, we'll wait and see what happens.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez opposed.
Now we move on to item D5, public input and discussion regarding Measure K, citywide half-cent sales tax measure on the November 7th, 2017 ballot. And this item is for public input and discussion only. I do have one card. Shama Hill. Still here? Him here? Joshama Hill?
They left.
Yes, they left.
This is one of my concerns, and has been all along, is that we've got this issue out there on a ballot. People are going to have to vote and decide, and public discussion and information, and the pluses and minuses. Be a good thing to talk about, but I guess there's not a lot of public interest in that. I was disappointed with the mailer that came out yesterday that had a lot of incorrect information in it. I mean, I don't mind people having a difference of opinion. We're not here to promote one side or the other, but to say that Jim Cox wasted millions building the station at 315 is just ludicrous. I mean, that's insane. It was built by development impact fees. The developer who built the project had to build the park and the fire station. It wasn't paid by taxpayer dollars. That kind of stuff is just crazy. There were other things.
Well, just for the record, I was not the city manager or council person when that occurred.
When that was built?
No.
That was after your term?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you ought to be responsible anyway.
Well, I don't mind. I don't mind.
But that was disappointing. If we're going to have a debate, let's have an honest, straightforward.
And let them do the research first before they start pointing fingers.
Oh, well.
Okay, I do have another card. Maggie Martin.
Good evening again. Listen, I'm up here. I'm not going to say anything that I haven't said before, but, you know, Mr. Kennedy, Councilmember Kennedy inspired me to speak because he's saying he's not hearing input. So here it is again. Measure K, we need it. We must have it. It's the only fair and equitable thing for every citizen of Victorville, which is everyone, who receives fire and police service. Otherwise, it unfairly puts the burden on property owners, such as myself, in the city of Victorville, to provide for people who don't want to pay their fair share. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the best thing that I can come up with. Nobody likes having a tax increase, but for the love of God, it's like half a cent. You know, half a cent. And we just need it. We need it. I'm telling you, when you have to wait what I would deem an unlengthy period of time for a police response on a non-priority call, that should send a message to everybody. We need more police. We need more fire. We need them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I don't see any other way. And as far as I know, there is no other option. There is no other way. But I want to see this measure pass because I don't want to be the only one of however many thousands people, property owners are in Victorville, saying, I've got to pay for that non-property owner's medical aid, car crash, fire service, police department investigation. I think that burden should be equally shared. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Norm Miller.
Mayor, council members, I was here when you guys passed this resolution for the voting on K, and it seemed to me the question that was up was whether it should be paid for by the property owners or by sales tax. And that seemed like a pretty simple ballot measure. But then something came in where somebody said, well, we're not going to get enough firemen. And I think this turned political, and that upsets me. This has nothing to do with firemen or policemen. This has to do who pays for them. And in the measure, it says how many firemen, how many policemen. Of course, it says 515, which I'm very in favor of because we live in that area. But anyway, I'd like to see if something can't be done to get a lot of this negative advertisement out of there for this, because it's really changing things around. It has nothing to do with who pay, or has nothing to do with firemen or policemen. It has to do who pays for it. And why the union wants the property owners to pay for it, I don't know. That has nothing to do with it. The whole thing is how it's going to be paid for, and it should be paid, I don't want to say equally, but it should be paid by everybody, because everybody's going to benefit it. And the money's going to go somewhere. If we get the money, which I guess we will, I hope we will, it's going to go either to the county, it's going to go to the city, it's going to go to wherever you guys decide. But that has nothing to do. We've got to get the money first, and that should be done by the tax increase, the 0.5% tax increase. That's what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek, I'm not sure if I got your name right.
So my name is Derek Gary. I'm a property owner here in Victorville. I've been here for about 15 years or so. With Measure K, I am in support of it if it's gonna benefit our police department and bring more police to our neighborhood. I don't know if anybody have read my name in a newspaper, but my daughter was abducted in sex trafficking here in the high desert. I'm not sure if anybody knows how big that epidemic is here in the high desert, but it's humongous. And when I talked to the police officers that came to my house 6 hours late, when I gave them information where my daughter was, I was told, sorry, sir, I don't have enough people. I had to wait almost a week in order to get a hold of somebody to call me. I can't tell you how devastated me and my family was that my daughter was being trafficked all over the high desert, then to San Bernardino and G Street, finally to be left out Figueroa in Los Angeles with a pimp. If the police department could have had the funds to have more officers out there, my daughter could have been saved. My family is not the only family that's dealing with this in the high desert. Like I said, this is a huge epidemic that was just brought to me, to my doorstep. And I'm asking that whoever can support this bill, support it. I will pay any amount of money to protect my family, as I'm sure you would. And any amount of tax dollars that I have to pay, I would pay if it goes to supporting our police and our fire. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other cards. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item?
Yes, I'm going to speak on this item if it's open for council. I don't know if you close public comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Did you close public comment, or were you asking council members?
I don't have any other cards.
Oh.
So are there any questions, comments? I had already asked before, but they started giving me cards for your information.
Okay, so
do we have anyone else that wants to speak on this item?
yes. So I also recently received why taxpayers oppose Measure K. Sales taxes are too high. Victorville residents are already paying the highest state sales tax in the United States. Measure K will increase the taxes for the average Victorville family by hundreds of dollars every day. Measure K will raise our gas taxes even higher than our state's 12-cent gallon tax hike. Too costly for families and seniors, Measure K will hurt residents who can afford it, at least by raising prices to hundreds of everyday items like clothes, household goods, and over-the-counter medicine. Unfair to senior citizens who are living on fixed incomes, families who spend more on their incomes on everyday taxable items, mismanagement and wasteful spending. Victorville is rated as one of the state's worst financially managed cities. Measure K includes no independent taxpayer oversight to prevent wasteful spending. City officials like Mr. Cox squandered millions to build a fire station that has never been in use. Millions of tax residents wasted on an empty fire station. So I hadn't gotten this, and when I got this, I realized two things. No wonder we had 4 council members write pro. No wonder we're using spending taxpayer money to give a certain perception why the tax is needed. And that really bothered me, because in conversations today, I found out that politics, politicking or something like that could be happening, and we're not even catching it. And so, to my dismay, when I run into a handful of people that I introduce myself as their voice as council member, seniors in particular, well, what do you think about this measure? Why are you doing this? And I have to give a stance and say, you know what? This is what was proposed. This is what I had thought what we were going to do. I don't know. You should probably come to our forum and figure out why it is that we're increasing a tax, and if these tax monies are indeed going to go. This one senior said, well, Blanca, what is happening is I don't really care if we're going to have the money and it's going to stay within the district. What I care to know is what's happening to the money beforehand. Where is all that money that consistently is used for this is going to go? And I said, you know what, I never thought about that. And that's why I go out to people and I discuss this item to be able to understand a little better what it is that is happening.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I think that's an argument for somebody who doesn't own property.
Well,
that's for sure.
Well, first of all, this statement's full of just, I want to say misstatements because I don't want to be crude, but most of them are just out and out lies. It's that simple.
We don't pay the highest sales tax
Oh,
in
no,
the country.
no,
That's just
no, it's just not true.
pay a high sales tax. There are other counties in California that pay a higher sales tax.
Other
than we
cities
do.
pay a higher sales tax.
That's why I keep saying they need to do their research before they start saying anything.
All right, I think we should move on because we have figured out a way to go to the public and have 10 policemen and 15 firefighters, and the only people opposed to it are the very people that it would benefit beyond me. other than the quote, "We're saving our jobs," and that's not true either. So we're not going to get any place here.
I don't think I'm
Okay, so
benefiting
now,
from this, but I would like to
this
bring a
was only
motion.
this
And
was
the motion
only
that I
for-
would like to bring is, instead of just allowing us to give one supposedly factual information bit, I think if we have pros and cons to this measure, I think that's better than saying, well, we're just throwing out the facts, because we are using taxpayer money. And so, like I said, that's just a motion that I made.
This was for discussion only. So we will move on.
So if there's no second, clearly the motion dies.
You actually can't make a motion on this item. It's for public input and
It's only
discussion only.
information.
There's no
I know,
action.
but I can still do what I just did and say there's no motion and it died. Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
We move on to public comments. And I do have quite a few cards. So we might as well get started, otherwise we'll get home at midnight. Sharon Foster, you're first, and then Mike, I think it's Mike Kemp will be next.
I know, but nobody's up there yet.
Do we have to still go the 3 minutes, or can we?
Yes, we will time
Or
on
can
3
we
minutes.
shorten that? I have quite a few cards, or?
I believe that's mayor's discretion.
It's up to me?
Yes, it is.
Okay, we'll give them 2 minutes. Sharon, you're first.
Good evening, Mayor and council member. My name is Sharon Foster. I am not a resident of Victorville, but I do have a business on 7th Street. I do take homage to the reference of 7th Street that was done earlier, but that's okay. I have been a very good champion, I think, for the city of Victorville and for Old Town. It hurts me when I hear something bad about either the city or my Old Town. I've come to you asking for help. Over the last 60 to 75 days, my business has been broken into 3 times, okay? And it's not the amount, well, first of all, they've never gotten into the business. What they do is it's a nuisance, try to enter. But the last time that they were, it was last Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning, they did severe damage on some very old doors that we won't be able to replace. So we're going to lose some facade at the building. What was happening was, it looks like somebody was taking either a crowbar or a hatchet to the wood doors. So again, it was a nuisance try to entry. They did not enter. But they did, I think, sign their work. And their signature was...
You have 30 seconds.
ATWX3. Now, I don't know if that's a gang or what it is, but that's what was signed on the area where they were chopping at the door. And this was something that could not have been done in a matter of seconds. It took time to really hack at the door. So I'm surprised that somebody on 7th Street didn't report somebody trying to get in. So it was apparently very early in the morning.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon. Mike Kemp? Robert Richardson?
Hey, good evening to the council, mayor. I rose to voice my opinion with Derek. We do need more police officers. When we call in for incidents that are taking place in our neighborhood, it takes sometimes hours. I am a neighborhood watch captain. Mr. Kennedy, we'd like to thank you for setting this up for us 3 years ago. We came in here because there was incidents in our neighborhood of shooting. Since then, this same person that had organized a party and allowed gang members and shootings to take place has worsened. This is one of the houses that his daughter was in. And it just extraordinarily pissed us off because it's in our neighborhood. And we've been trying to get something done with this house on the corner. All of the neighborhood, everybody in the neighborhood knows this house and the trafficking that is going on. We have reported it.
You have 30 seconds.
We have reported it over and over and over again. And still, it has not been any kind of response that we are satisfied with. Everybody in the neighborhood is afraid of this house. They're scared to come through the neighborhood almost. Why? Because they see the activity going on there. And like you said, we've called the police. And
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
We hear you. You got your message.
We hear you.
So did Mrs. Foster.
Derek, Gary, and then after Derek, it'll be Yvonne McKinney.
Be real quick since I already went a few minutes ago, but I just again want to ask for the council's help in helping with this epidemic here in the desert. Whatever resources you can do, whatever is in your power, I'm asking you, please save the children of Victorville. Please save my daughter and daughters like that, and young boys, because it's not only girls. There's young boys, they start them at age as little as 8 and all the way up to 17. So I just, as a father and as a member of this community and a homeowner, I'm begging you, please help me. Okay. Thank you.
We hear you, and we are trying to add 10 more police officers. We're trying.
And that measure is sales tax, and it's only public safety. But whether we need 15 firemen and 10 policemen or 20 policemen and 5 firemen is a decision we get to make.
No.
And they will be designated strictly for that.
No, it's not.
Actually, just to correct that, because I don't want the misinformation out there, 15 firefighters, 10 police officers are guaranteed. There is additional revenue above.
If there's anything more to work with, we're going to hire more police.
There would be a couple $1 million above that could be spent on other public safety services, including more police officers, if that's the direction of the council.
You should look at our litigation, how much money is spent. Some of that money, instead of litigating, should barely be spent right there. Come at 5 o'clock and you'll see a lot of it.
Excuse me, I have a lady that's waiting to speak.
Thank you.
Yvonne McKinney.
Thank you.
Sorry about all this disruption.
That's fine. Thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity to address the council. My name is Yvonne Telf McKinney. I'm a family practitioner here in Victorville. I'm practicing here since 2005. I am a business owner I'm practicing since 2004, a business owner since 2005 in Victorville. I'm here to ask some help. I have businesses, and we have called the police several times. The police should know our address and our name by heart right now. They know our numbers, our phone numbers. We have been calling and calling because the street people are left on our properties. Well, they're taken once in a while by the police in custody. However, they are released in less than 4 hours. We are being told that there's nothing that can be done because it's a misdemeanor. However, as a business owner, I don't think it's fair that we keep being told by the city we need to clean our property. We pay hundreds of dollars to clean our properties every time they leave their belongings there. Right now, we had break-ins last week. We had break-ins this Saturday. I have personally been on my property waiting for the police, and the police has not shown up. I went Sunday again for 3 hours. The police has not shown up. My office manager, who's here with me, waited also for the police.
You have 30
The
seconds.
police called that he's here after 8 hours today. I want to ask if there's something that can be done to help business owners. I'm trying to stay in Victorville to support the city. I love the city. However, we have no support. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Granger, and then after Donna is Dorothy Miller.
Thank you. I'm also a business owner in Victorville. So I wanted to also make a comment about this 7th Street. If you want to have drugs, you want to get drugs, go to Old Town. The city should be embarrassed that people are saying that. Should be embarrassed. You know, there's a saying that says that to care for those that cared for you is a sign of honor. And your Old Town is your heritage. And we're treating it like it's nothing. We should be not dropping off the felons at the transportation center. You guys talked about this months ago, and you've not talked about it since. What's going on with the felons being dropped off? They're dropped off at 11 o'clock at night, at 12 o'clock at night. It's not even open. There's not even any buses down there at that time of night. So what are they doing? They're breaking into businesses. They're burning down your buildings. It's got to stop. You've got to do something about that. I just implore you to do something about it. Also, you know, you were doing the planning department was doing something about the parking, and that was months ago. What's going on? You're not telling us. You're not putting it on the agenda. What's going on with that? You know, talking and talking and talking, we have to do some action. And I do agree about the sales tax. I do agree that you do need help, and maybe the money does need to be allocated differently. We all support that. But we have to take care of our town. There's a cleanup day Saturday. You didn't even mention that in the agenda. We all should be down there cleaning up this Saturday. You didn't even mention that. So I would just appreciate, just along with everyone else, some help for Old Town.
Thank you. Dorothy Miller.
Hello, council members. I believe most of you know us very well. We've been coming to council meetings since 1999, and the council has never been in a situation they're in now, and it's really bothering me. We have not been coming to the meetings because of what's going on, and it's not right that the public can see what is going on and let it go. It's just really killing me. Now, there was a thing that happened just a few minutes ago on number 5, public input, not council members, but we had a speech a mile long. Why? It wasn't for the council members, it was for the public. I'm just really disturbed with all the stuff that is going on. We've had quite a few council members up there. We've never had a situation like you people have now. It is ridiculous, absolutely sickening. And I wanted to let you know exactly how I feel and how quite a few other people feel the same way. That's why I'm here, to let you know. But as I say, we've not been coming like we used to. When the new council member got on the board and this stuff started, we got fed up. That was it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Maggie Martin.
In case anyone's not clear about who Mrs. Miller is referring to, she's referring to Council Member Gomez. Don't you just know? One moment, I'm pulling up my comments. These comments are directed specifically and only for the benefit of Councilmember Gomez. Let me tell you something. I've had it with you. I've been professional. I've tried to drill it through your hard head, how to be a professional woman, how to act with dignity, how to act with courtesy and respect for your fellow members and everybody from one end to the other of this dais. You don't get it. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of tonight of what you can look forward to from me on this next council meeting, because I will expound on it then. Okay, one moment. This is a short list. I'll be adding to it. Last meeting, ignoring the mayor when she's tapping the gavel. Take the cotton out of your ears and stuff it in your mouth. That's what you need to do. That's first and foremost. Blatantly respected our city attorney. After he explained to you 3-4 times, you still didn't get it. I'm really beginning to wonder, what's going on in your off time. Interrupting other members. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Interrupting.
You have 30 seconds.
Interrupting other members of council, calling the police chief by his first name, not by the title he earned and deserved. Do not let me hear that again. If I hear anything of this nature, which I've already mentioned, you're going to be hearing from me right over there. Throwing down the race card, don't want to hear that either. Let me tell you what they can't tell you. You know why? You know why you perceive a hard time from these people? Because there's a saying, give respect, get respect. And there's not anyone sitting up there that has any respect for you.
Your time is up.
The end until next meeting.
Thank you. That was the last card that I had under public comments. So now I will go and move on to reports from our city manager.
Before you start, I was hoping the lady would stay because I know Doug has worked very hard in regard to the prisoner drop-off downtown, but...
Left.
Yeah, I have been in communications with the sheriff, and they are in a process, I believe it may have concluded by now, although I don't have results, to arrange for a different way of transporting prisoners that will give them additional options, not only Old Town Victorville, that will hopefully put them back in the community that they came from. So if they're from Hesperia, there should be a stop in Hesperia. Likewise with Apple Valley, Adelanto, and other areas in the high desert. It's more complicated than it should be, but I know that the sheriff has done an RFP process, RFI, and followed it up with an RFP process, and hopefully we'll have something to share on that in the very near future. But unfortunately, the person who mentioned that isn't here. Additionally, I always give, even though it feels a little bit strange, to be happy about some of our upcoming events, especially following some of the public comments that we get. This Saturday is our Community Cleanup Day. Right now, it looks like we will have about 1,200 volunteers helping clean up the city. That may be a record, except for the one time that Disney gave free Disneyland tickets to anybody who volunteered for a day, and then it was just insane. But beyond that, I believe that this is a record. There will be 45 sites throughout the city. It's the 10th anniversary, actually, of our Community Cleanup Day. We do it twice a year. Shred Fest, November 4th at the Murph. This information is available on our website as well, of course. Free Dump Day at the Murph on November 18th. There's a bill insert in your October water bill, so look for that. And then finally, Veterans Day is coming up November 11th. We do want to honor all veterans who have a connection to Victorville. If you've lived in Victorville, don't have to now. If you do now, that's good too. And Sue Jones is heading that up for us. And I think you have until tomorrow by the latest date, but I suspect if you got it to her on Thursday, she'd let you in. So if you know any veterans, please ask them to come and be part of our celebration. There's a brief form to fill out to get you on the list and get you recognized, and you can submit pictures and all kind of fun stuff like that. So with that, I believe that is the conclusion of my report. I did want to mention to the members of the public, I know it's frustrating, especially when you don't come here often, but we are time limited on our public comments to 3 minutes, and it's frustrating for you to be limited that way when you have a lot to say. It's frustrating for the council to have to limit you in that way. But just understand, and I know this will be echoed as we go down the line here, that we do hear you. Certainly I'll be talking with Captain Schuler and asking him to do some follow-up on some of the issues that were raised tonight. So that concludes my report, I believe.
Did you have anything to add as far as the Fall Festival, the outcome of it, or?
It's impossible to count. Just generally speaking, we expanded the length of it, if you will, along the road, so the people weren't as compacted. But overall, it appeared that the number of visitors was down slightly versus the year before. We believe a lot of that had to do with the tragedy in Las Vegas and just some fears there. But overall, we heard essentially nothing but positive comments again. It was still very well attended, over 20,000, we believe. The exciting part was we were essentially a full house for the Fat Cat Swinger concert the Friday night. So we are looking to do that again, possibly expand it. Christian's not in the room, so I can just tell you we will expand it. And he can't say anything about it. Somebody back there needs to mention that to him. But it is a great festival. We will continue to not only try to make that festival better, but also we are working on some other events throughout the year that we'd like to grow to a similar sort of party for the city, if you will, and shut down Civic Drive on a quarterly or every other month basis so that our community can come together and help us build community and add some culture to our city. So.
Very well. Thank you. Now we move on to discussion and possible action regarding items for upcoming City Council agenda. I'll start with Ms. Gomez.
I have nothing.
I don't have anything.
Madam Mayor, I have a item I'd like to request the council support to add to the next agenda, and that is the upcoming proposed SCE rate increase of 12% over the next 3 years. And I'd like to add that to the next meeting agenda with the support of the council to get some analysis by the city staff and whether or not the city should support that action or not.
Okay. I concur.
Are we talking about something that's on closed session? Or what does SCE stand for?
Southern California Edison.
So what is it that we're putting on the agenda? SCE for discussion about what's happening? It wasn't clear.
It's to be agendized for the next meeting.
Right, so we're going to
time it will be discussed.
So we're going to agendize SCE for the next agenda, and that's it? Don't you have any, what is SCE, Southern California Edison? Is it infrastructure related?
Proposed rate increase, I believe I heard.
Okay, so proposed. Thank you, Negretti, for responding to that, and Mr. Cox, thank you as well.
Like I said, worry about yourself.
I didn't hear what you said.
It's
if
every
I did,
meeting.
I wouldn't be answering to you.
It's every meeting, so don't worry about it. Worry about yourself. If you can't follow along, worry about yourself.
If you're talking to all of us, I'd like to know.
It's an agenda item.
I will move on.
Evil eyes, gosh.
Enough.
Madam Mayor, sorry.
Comments?
I do want to, I have a comment if I can. I want everybody to understand that when they have the public comments that they come, we don't discuss it, we don't debate it because it's not on the agenda. The Brown Act requires that we put items on the agenda that we're going to discuss, and that way we can have an exchange of ideas. But anyone can come and address the council, but they can't expect to get an answer. On the other hand, we have a card, and very often the police chief, his assistant, the lieutenant, the city manager contacts those individuals. And without that understanding, individuals come to the microphone, they make their presentation, they want an answer, they don't get it because we can't give it to them, but we can contact them, answer the problems, or put it on the agenda for a later date. They go away, and people watching wonder if there's any response. There's always a response. But we need to make a little better explanation when we start the process of what those individuals can expect. And for people watching, we let them know that when you come and make a request, the city does respond. We're not sure who's going to respond. Might be a council person, might be the manager, but there is a response, unless it's just a complaint that we can't respond to. But we don't just ignore individuals who come to this microphone. We appreciate their comments. Thank you. That's all I have.
Madam Mayor, I have just two comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number one, nobody here to hear it. I regret and apologize for shouting from the dais. I think it's real inappropriate, and it's a result of losing my patience, and it's inappropriate, and I will do my level best to never do that again. I'm not proud of that. The second thing I want to tell you is that through 8 innings, the Dodgers are leading the Cubs 6-1. 6-1 in Chicago. Go Dodgers. That's it. That's all I need to say. I've done enough time.
I guess we're on reports. Did you have something to report?
Madam Mayor, I was trying to
Oh,
catch you before you
yes,
moved on to
yes,
the reports.
yes.
There was some discussion, and the city clerk alerted me to this, while trying to schedule the workshop regarding Measure K. There was some discussion about whether or not we should proceed with that, given the lack of input at council meetings. So just as a reminder, I don't even know who brought that up, but as a reminder, any of the council members, I think somebody was thinking of perhaps bringing that up for a discussion about whether or not it would be fruitful to have that session or not, and potentially give us different direction than we had last week. We're happy to schedule it. I know Carolee will continue working on an appropriate date, but I know that was something that came up, and this would be, I think, the appropriate time to have that discussion as the whole council, if you so desire.
The reason for the request is that the city council, as council members, can't go out in the community and become advocates for this as council people. Can as a private individual, but it becomes almost impossible to be a private individual, a public official, a private individual. I have been told that a council person that goes out in the community and takes a pro or con stance on an item that this council put on the item, that they have to declare a conflict and can't discuss it, as they said here. It can't be both. I'm not sure that's correct. Tonight we saw an individual become a private citizen and a council member, and I have no idea what the rules are anymore. But the only way we're going to get an informed vote from the public is for them to be informed, and they are not informed. Lies are being spread. If nobody counteracts that, expect the worst. If there's some agency that's going to put out information, and I understand now there is, then there's no need for the city council to try to hold a forum and try to explain to the public what's really going on. Our hands are tied, we understand that, but it's just like we talked about the cleanup day. I suppose we have to take a half page out in the daily press to advertise the cleanup day or whatever it is. I don't know how we get the word out. We try to do our best. I know we get a lot of calls here. Maybe we need to do a better job of getting the word into the community as to what we're doing. But on the other hand,
There is a website.
well, I know, but not everybody uses a website, and not everybody, goes on the computer at 4 o'clock in the morning and does things either. So I just want the public to understand what the facts are. And if they're informed, they make that decision, we'll respect that. But I get calls every day, people calling me saying, I just read this, is this true? I have to go through very carefully. But a statement, this is close to being true. Why? I hate doing it, but I can't imagine putting out that information to begin with. I'm not sure it's up to this council to have those hearings. I thought it would be a good idea to get the word out, but who knows? Leave it up to the rest of the council. I don't care anymore.
You want to continue the?
Oh, I don't really. I'll show up if we want to do it. I'll be here, but I just. We're talking to ourselves all the time.
So then for clarification, October 24th at 5 is no longer something viable, because I have an email. Right?
That was the date that I was
proposing.
looking at, but if
So
that's
I
up to
could
the
just
council if you don't
Okay,
want
so
to
then
have
I'll
it.
just ignore it since
No,
I'm
we will,
assuming that.
we haven't decided yet. We will
Oh,
have
okay.
it. We'll have the,
You
workshop.
are going to proceed with the forum then on Tuesday? Or, okay.
If you're going to have it, I'll be here. It's up to the rest of the council.
Okay,
For the 24th? Yes.
week from today.
So that's on the calendar. Anyone else? Any reports or anything?
Yes. So, Councilmember Negrete, when you said you want the support of council, I included myself. If that's not the case and you don't give clarification, I'm going to assume that you don't consider me a council member and you don't need my vote. So when I ask for clarification, I literally want to support what it is you're talking about. But if I have no clue, I'm going to say, I don't know what you just said, so I'm going to vote no on supporting you because you're not willing to clarify. But fortunately, the manager knew exactly what you were talking about, so now I know what it is. So next time, if you don't want to include me as a council member's decision, just make it known. That way I don't have to ask questions and see what clarity you need for my behalf. The other thing I wanted to share is it's really important for the community to realize that we do have a lot of spending power in appropriations and funding. We don't just ask for taxpayer money. We already have pre-allocated monies, general funds, and different types of funds. What I do see is a lack of participation during the 5 o'clock meeting, which we have a lot of litigation going on. And if any of you were awake or wanted to know where our money goes, you would have a big say-so. We spent a lot of money in litigation. Sometimes, in my opinion, there is absolutely no need to spend that much money. So if you start to pay attention the first and third Tuesday of every month at 5 o'clock, even if you're here for the first 5-10 minutes, and ask questions, what is the money going to, what are we spending, you'd begin to realize that you have a lot of power in saying where we should be spending that money. So that's my best advice, instead of always asking for a tax to be raised, because that tax comes with a lot of heftiness, and it takes away probably from the sustainability of your food, your childcare, and everything else that you need to do. We don't need government telling us what to do all the time. We have the voice of the people, and you are the people. You need to come, give us something to represent you. That's all I have to say.
Madam Mayor, I have one final comment. I'd like to apologize to the members of the public and those viewing online for what they've seen over the last, what seems like forever, about a year. But, there's not a lot of need to debate items here. We vote, there's a motion, second. If there's not a second, there's no vote. So I have been trying my best to be patient. But I do not explain myself again 2 times when I've said it once. We have consensus on an agenda item, and we will discuss that item at the next meeting. So in the future, unfortunately, we have a lack of professional decorum, which is why you hear things about the council policy, conduct policy, censure, and whatnot. But there's a way of doing business in the interest of time, in the interest of doing the city's business. There's a way to do things. And I really appreciate Councilmember Kennedy, Mayor Pro Tem Cox, and Mayor Garcia for doing a great job. It's been a pleasure to work with them. Unfortunately, I was a little ill last meeting, but anyway, I'm really proud of all the work that we've been doing. Public safety is a very important issue for all of us, and it may not look pretty, but we're doing the best that we can. Thank you for coming up.
Move adjournment.
Mayor Garcia, if you'd like, you could adjourn this meeting to 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th, for the forum.
This meeting is adjourned until
Tuesday, October 24th at 5 p.m.
Tuesday, October 24th at 5 p.m.